telling where we've been. And all I know is that if you can't find me, you may never want to find me again. Cause people don't understand. People don't understand. People like me.
Happy Tuesday night, ladies and gentlemen. We're back here for episode 19 of the Barroom Podcast, and we got a bunch of familiar faces, and we also have some people who unfortunately couldn't join us today because they have a little bit of a cold, according to them, but we'll shout them out here in a second. But let's go ahead and join the people who did show up here tonight. Let's go ahead and start off with our good buddy Orange Hat reviews. Orange Hat headphones and all. How you doing tonight, Orange?
Doing good. How you guys all doing?
Doing pretty well tonight, and joining us all the way from the Best Coast is Mr. Rob Motto. How you doing there, Rob?
Pretty good. The Braves lost to fucking in extra innings today, and that sucked. But other than that, pretty good.
Not only did they lose, but then somehow Houston fucking found a way to come back, which is like a double shitty feeling. It's like, oh, they can come back in the ninth inning and score like 4 runs, but the Braves can't. It's like, okay. Well, joining us also from the West Coast, but not the best state, is Miss Nerdigans. How you doing tonight?
Good, I got a kitty in my lap, of course. Always. He's always in my lap. He always knows when it's time to come on. Right, kitties?
Sorry, I was really reading something else right as you said that. But I wanted to shout out our person who was joining us in silence tonight, Miss C.S. Johnson. How you doing tonight? And you haven't said anything tonight.
Hey.
Short and to the point. Short and to the point. And then, of course, joining us.
Want to open that can of worms, you know?
Yeah. And then, of course, joining us once again after his great appearance last week on the show, Mr. Pete Plishke, right?
Close enough.
Plishke. Okay. I was close enough to not butcher it, just mispronounce.
Oh, it's more like who it's nice to meet someone they don't. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are all here tonight, and obviously we got a little congregation happening in the chat tonight as well. Spencer is joining us for the show. He wants us to hurry up and get started, and you might regret that a little bit later on as we talk about some other topics, just a little foreshadowing there for you. We also have Duke Nukem who's joining us in the chat, burying Marvel before we've even talked about Marvel, just on brand of him. Of course, Johnson's in the chat. Then we have our good buddy, Cold Classic Cage, who the streak is broken. She had been on every show we have done so far, but she's not joining us tonight because she has a little bit of maybe it's the coof, maybe it's not the coof, but she's definitely sick. So I know she's at home right now, enjoying her time, I guess with her dog or whatever animal that tried to kill herself not too long ago. So get better, Cassie. Hopefully we'll have you back here for next week. And then, of course, there's a shout out to everyone who's in the chat. Yeah, Slam Diego. I think they're going to be playing here in the next couple of minutes. I just hope they beat the Dodgers because I can't fucking stand the Dodgers at all. And then, of course, our big buddy Nito here is joining us in the chat as well. So I figure that we should just kind of go ahead and just start off this hot with a very interesting topic, and this is Kanye West. So Kanye West has kind of set the world on fire by managing to piss off everyone you could possibly imagine over just the last couple days alone. And it all started when Kanye West decided that he was going to come out with this T-shirt mocking the Black Lives Matter movement. It said White Lives Matter. And this caused essentially all of the Democrats and Black Twitter to disown Kanye West for like the third time in like the last 3 years. You see here, it was like him and Candace Owens had appeared in like some kind of like show. I think this was initially in overseas in Paris, and they were wearing a White Lives Matter T-shirt, the one that you see right here. And obviously, it got them a lot of attention. People were very, very angry. There was even death threats I saw with a lot of outlets, people saying that, yeah, you wear that T-shirt out here, then, something bad might happen to you. So, don't dare say that White Lives Matter, because apparently that's a racism. But here's the picture here that everyone's talking about. So after this whole thing blew up, he went on Tucker Carlson a couple days later. He made a bunch of statements about, the Black Lives Matter movement. He even slammed, the fat acceptance movement. He was talking about porn and a whole bunch of other different topics that got him a lot of attention. Well, right after he did that interview, there was another little, let's just say, interesting tweet storm that he had that really got him in trouble with a lot of social media. Is when he said that he was going to go DEF CON on the Jews. And here's the now deleted tweet. He's now been, I believe, locked out of both Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. But this is the tweet here that caused the biggest firestorm. It says, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEF CON 3, which I'm pretty sure he doesn't know how the DEF CONs actually work, but just go with it for a second. On Jewish people. The funny thing is that I can't actually be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew. Also, you guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who poses your agenda." So he posted this tweet. And immediately everyone shut him out of all of his accounts. He hasn't been banned, but he has been locked out. I think he's been like a week-long bans or whatever the case may be. So he's about as close as you could possibly get from being unpersoned on social media right now based on this tweet and a bunch of other things that he said. So Kanye West has managed to become the most hated person in the world right now for a multitude of reasons. Here's what I feel about Kanye West. Is he mentally unstable? I think there's enough evidence to say that he's probably not all well upstairs. But then again, when you've been in Hollywood and the music industry for 20 plus years, I don't think anyone there is mentally sound. So the fact that he's speaking out more than others, I mean, I don't really think too much of him from that perspective anyway. I did kind of defend him when, the whole like White Lives Matter thing happened and he was getting so much hate from like black Twitter because he was pointing out how BLM was a scam. And obviously all the people who were sending him death threats like he was the problem, even though the people who are behind Black Lives Matter are the ones that are buying mansions in Beverly Hills and Malibu right now off the money that they raised off the bodies of, dead black men over the last few years in this country. I didn't have a problem with him, with what he said there, but then he started going after the people you're not supposed to go after, and I even had it redacted on the Twitter thing, and that was a little knock for you guys who read the Twitter feed. But obviously that's caused a lot of firestorm. Sarah Silverman, of all people, decided to come out and try to get her shit in on Kanye West. A lot of people have come out about him. Now they're having these whole things about he has to speak with the Jewish community. The same thing that they kind of did with Nick Cannon. I think the point where Nerdigans was laughing is that he was repeating a lot of things that you would hear from what they have to call the Black Israelites, kind of like that Black nationalism movement that you hear a lot of too. So there's a lot of people who are unhappy with Kanye West. Probably doesn't think too much about him beforehand. So I kind of want to just go around the horn here. I'll start with Rob. What do you make of this whole thing with like Kanye West? Because like I said, whenever he speaks, whatever he says something in the media, I don't give it too mind. But the reaction that other people have of him, I think, kind of exposes a more underlining problem here. And I'll get to that one in a second. But what was just your thoughts on everything that happened so far regarding Kanye?
Yeah, I think Kanye West is a figure you have to be careful of, sort of like rushing to support, even if, even if he kind of is speaking for how a lot of people feel in the current moment, whether it's his comments about Planned Parenthood or, just the sort of culture war in general. So like, I think it's great that he's speaking out and everything, but like the guy's worth billions of dollars. He can't really be canceled. He can't really have too much taken away from him. So I just don't. I don't think he has much to personally lose. But he's also been shown to be a bit of a loose cannon, and he lives kind of in his own bubble. But yeah, I appreciate his comments, and I think they're spot on. But the whole like White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. I mean that was just a total provocation, but it brings up a valid point, which is what is Black Lives Matter really about? They catastrophize, every police shooting, and whether the police are found to be at fault or not. They don't wait for the, if there's a trial, they don't wait for the justice system to play out. They just condemn, police in general. So I think that's totally right to point that out. I'm certainly no fan of them, so I think it's ultimately a good thing.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a whole thing, like the whole defense of like Black Lives Matter is that people are so tribal. They just hear the name Black, and it's like, oh, I have to defend this because if I don't defend it, you're a racist, or I'm not defending my race, stuff like that. It's like you have to understand the agenda behind this organization, and if you're truly supportive of quote unquote Black lives, if you're truly a quote unquote pro Black, their agenda has absolutely nothing to do with protecting Black lives in that nature. There's a lot of stuff about attacking the patriarchy and a lot of LGBTQ stuff that's been squeezed in there. Look at the people who are the I guess you could say management and the figure leaders of that organization. It's like if you're just so focused on the word Black that you can't I guess consume any other context outside of that, then you're not even on level one of this entire discussion. But I know Pete, you've had some things that you wanted to say about this story, so I'll let you go on here.
I definitely do. I have almost too much. Kanye West is someone that is going through a really rough time in his life.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, he saw a divorce. He's seen everything that's happened with his family. He's made lots of very strange decisions. Changed his name, got into odd business ventures. You could really go down the rabbit hole. You will find videos of Kanye West at big business meetings sharing videos of pornography with the people he's trying to pitch to. Just really weird, not healthy behavior. And separate that out from the political stuff. It seems like his behavior is very manic. I would not be surprised if he is bipolar. He's talked about having mental health issues in the past.
Yeah.
And anyone that's had someone, especially they're bipolar, I mean, other people got manic episodes, but with people who are bipolar, when they have them, it's usually high energy, high grandiosity, huge risk taking. And it accentuates their worst features and just leads them making really poor decisions. And you can see this in the media stuff he's done. I'm not necessarily throwing the White Lives Matter stuff in the sense that was a risky decision, at least from the place of his music career. The guy needs help, right? But the saddest thing is no one's offering it. I mean, the people he went to with Fox News and Tucker Carlson, they didn't help. They only helped to the extent that they cut out the clips they thought would be most damaging to him. But they still went ahead with the video, and apparently someone at staff leaked that. The people that work with him with his shoe business, his music career, obviously his family members, they don't seem to be, either they're not helping or they're unable to get him help. I mean, it's just really hard to watch. And I like Kanye. I've been a supporter of a lot of his things. Part of the mental illness is that's kind of like he's always been a risk taker. So when you jump from being a producer to doing music, when he jumps to these new projects, that's the good side of it, right? But it also comes with the downsides, which is sometimes you make very bad decisions and you believe things are untrue, and it's just painful to watch. And it makes me sad because we're both sides are so obsessed with their own politics and the culture war. Very few people are asking like, can someone please get this man help? Because this is obviously someone that is struggling with something pretty heavy, and we're all kind of poking fun and laughing or mocking at our own amusement.
And I will say this too, like I agree with that, but the problem is that, like you said, he's in the world of Hollywood is his bubble. So when you say, can somebody help this guy? Who's going to help him in the Hollywood bubble? What, John Legend? Is Kim Kardashian going to come to the table and help this guy out? It's like, who does this guy really consider a friend? Like, I know he's close to like Candace Owens, but I mean, Candace Owens is a little bit of an opportunist. Let's just call it.
You were right. I think that is part of it. I think it's because he surrounds so many people in his life, both professional or personal. They're the kind of people that, when you're drowning, they slap your hand down. It's like, it's vicious. It's very shark-like behavior. And look, when it's someone in his position going through something heavy like this, I mean, even people who are they don't have mental illness or something like bipolar, and they have like a major divorce and they can't see their kids, and then everything's going on in public and all your worst laundries. I mean, that would make most of us who are very sensible break. So it's not a surprise necessarily that he's going through this, but it's very painful to watch.
Nerdigans, as our Jewish representation on this show, let me ask you a question. Now that Black people are the real Jews, do you have the N-word pass now?
No. I've dealt with this before. I mean, obviously. And I've seen like the ugly side of the Black community before, and how it can really drive someone insane. Because I used to work for Tommy Sotomayor, and I know how nasty
Oh
Black
yeah.
social media is. They stalk him. They stalked his family. They threatened to rape his daughter and shit like that. It's really nasty, and it will just push you and break you to a point where you just lose your mind. And in the case of Kanye, like, I do not blame him for saying this shit. Like, I know, like, part of me is like, dude, he is straight up trolling, and he's just so tired of all the fuckery he's dealing with. And so, like, him saying this is just, I see what he's saying about, like, the Black Hebrew Israelites. It's just hilarious because it's so true.
Yeah, I mean,
I get what he's saying because I've seen the Black Hebrew Israelites. They're so fucking delusional.
yeah. Keep in mind, Nick Cannon made comments similar to this maybe like a year or two ago, and ended up having to go through like the same apology tour. I think he ended up losing his job on. Well, he ended up.
There's a difference. There's a difference between like Nick Cannon or like Deshaun Jackson or like the people that called Julian Edelman a kike on the field.
Oh yeah.
Kanye is just fucking trolling. He's just going after them because he's like, dude, I'm tired of this fuckery. I'm calling out the problem because, like, what he said about Lizzo is really goddamn true. And it's not just the Black community; it's various communities, like the Hispanic community and the white community too, if you think about it. But like, it's the body positivity movement isn't helping anything. It really isn't. But. Like and I'm bipolar too, so maybe that's why I can understand it. But the other thing is from what I understand is that unlike, at least for me, maybe it's because of my mom working in the medical profession. The Black community is very, very, it's very taboo to discuss mental health. So that could be part of the reason why he's not getting help.
Yeah.
Just don't want to talk about it. And then in regards to Black Lives Matter, I watched it on the live stream. So I've seen like all the shenanigans on the streets. A lot of them say, and I've talked to a lot of them, they've said that they separate the organization from the branches. They always say that. They will always tell you that if you ask. They don't like the organization at all. They know the organization it's a bunch of fuckery. They don't like it. So that's why like it's just so weird to see all these idiots in like corporate media talk about the organization when it's like the actual people that are in the branches, they hate the organization.
Yeah. So. Orange Hat, what is your take on the Kanye saga here?
Kanye West, now known as Ye or whatever.
Ye.
Well, yeah, whatever. Dude's obviously messed up mentally. I'm not afraid to say that because so am I. But hey, all power to him for the White Lives Matter. He's allowed to do whatever the heck he wants, trolling wise, First Amendment and all that. The Jewish thing, somebody said Sarah Silverman piped up. You mean Sarah Blackface Silverman, the woman who is only Jewish when it's convenient?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, just real quick here, the Sarah Silverman thing was hilarious because she tried to come out and go against Kanye. Then like immediately people who were like just posting pictures of like her in blackface talking about Kanye being offensive to Jews. Then she tried to like flip it around and say, well, actually, when I said people need to speak out, I was talking about white peoples. And then they double dunked on her, be like, oh, so it's okay to call out white people, but you can't call out the Jews. Like every response that she had just got immediately dunked right back in her face.
Mm-hmm. That's because Sarah Silverman's no longer the comedian she thinks she is. I mean, at one point in her life, she may have been funny. I honestly don't know what point it was. Could have been just after puberty. I don't know. But the thing is, anybody who's going after Kanye, well, one, let's be honest. This dude thought that he could win a presidential election or a presidential campaign on star power because he thought, well, Trump did it, so can I. Well, no. As for him and all of this controversy. It's like, just you guys already disowned him like what 2 or 3 years ago. Let the man freaking, or you honestly can't do much more to him. I mean, the only thing you can really do to him is cancel all. Does he still do music and whatnot?
I mean, I guess so.
Didn't he just release an album or something?
Well,
not too long ago.
The worst you can do to him is cancel his music contract. But honestly, I don't think he'll care. And as for Kim Kardashian, that woman just fucked his head up even worse than it already was. I mean, that woman's no saint either. And honestly,
that
somebody
whole
should
family,
really take a needle to that ass.
Yeah, that whole family.
Yes, the whole family is screwed up.
Yeah,
the whole family has problems.
Yeah, I was gonna say the men in that family don't have really great.
The
track records.
Yeah.
Family.
So
the women control and dominate in that family.
Considering that family also has ties to slave labor in China. Yeah. I actually am old enough to remember that controversy on the news.
Well, that family is probably also responsible for destroying and damaging an entire generation of young girls as well. So you can throw that one.
That too, yeah.
It can be a symptom as well as a like a cause, I guess.
Yeah. Well, what's your
I really do. One last time, I really do miss Daz Black's videos on the Keeping Up with the Kardashians. If anybody doesn't know, Daz Black was he's a comedian, but he also used to do a lot of YouTube Vines, and Keeping Up with the Kardashians was one of the funnier ones he did.
Go ahead, Johnson.
Definitely. Yeah.
Sorry, one chat. I'm just gonna run right all
Go
over.
ahead.
All right.
No, go ahead.
All right, I got invited. So I personally don't care that much about secular music because, as you guys know, I'm a hoity-toity, uptight Christian.
Yeah.
And I love gospel music, and I love hymns, and I love going to church. So the fact that I'm really only having this conversation because Kanye became a Christian and was very public about it and did Jesus is King as his album, which I tried to listen to, and it was, for the most part, I got through it. It was nice,
Yeah.
I feel like I have to
and that's kind of the other thing too, though. Is I know Kanye has recently come out as a Christian. I think he's trying his best, but maybe if you want to be a true Christian, maybe one, just kind of get out of Hollywood altogether because it doesn't seem to be working for you mentally, and two, maybe stay away from women like Julia Fox and Kim Kardashian. Maybe that will help things out as well.
So I was going to address that and everything. So one of the things that happens sometimes after you had a terrible life like Kanye and you turn to religion, and I see this a lot. So I grew up in the church. I had my year of rebellion, and I came back to it, and I've never left. I love it. But so Kanye West is very controversial because he has had a lot of rap songs that are very popular. He had that video where he was sleeping with a bunch of women, including one that looked like Taylor Swift, and there was that whole Kim Swift battle mode, which is an interesting Twitter battle to be sure. But it's and he's had a lot of strange statements and a lot of dragon energy moments, even over the course of my life. I'm sure that he's seen a lot of crap. And I'm sure that he's seen a lot of things that when you become a Christian, especially, you start to realize how bad some of that crap actually is. In regards to Black Lives Matter, talking about one of their core tenets is to get rid of the family. And it's that's not actually good for Black people. That's not really good for anybody unless you have a terribly toxic family situation. And even then, that's something that requires nuance and due process and stuff like that, So
And not only that, but that thing that bothers me about that is that you can argue that at any race of people, especially in this country, that the destruction of the family unit has affected black people more than any other race in America right now. I think we're at something at like nearly 70% of kids like born out of wedlock raised by single mothers, which is an absolutely insane stat. And you look at, like I said, the crime rates and violence rates, like a lot of those things are directly correlated, but no one likes bringing that up.
yes, nobody likes to talk about fatherlessness.
Yeah.
And I think celebrity culture is stupid for what it's worth, because they have the money and the power and the ability to get out of a lot of their problems. Like when I see a bunch of like celebrities going out and promoting like abortion, for example, it's like, oh, hey, who cares? Just get rid of it if it's going to be inconveniencing you, because they can pay for it and it's nothing to them. And then they advocate these things for the poor people who go do them, and they don't actually get all the services sometimes, and they run into more problems. The healthcare, I mean, like most people don't realize that a lot of Planned Parenthoods are coded to have healthcare standards no higher than tattoo parlors. And if you've ever been in a tattoo parlor, that's kind of scary sometimes, depending on where you're going. So, and a lot of states have gotten rid of the requirements for like doctors to be around and emergency rooms to be like within a certain amount of miles. Nobody wants to talk about that either. So I think Kanye.
No one else wants to talk about the other thing that's been affecting minorities for decades is the child support problem. That's really hurt, especially the Black community. There's a lot of Black men that are in jail because of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, not only that, it's literally we're going to replace the father with the state, which, like I said, has led to an abundance of problems over the last 60 years at least. So
yeah, I feel bad for Kanye, because I feel like on some level he's trying to make sense of where his trouble is coming from, and right now he's probably getting a lot of trouble from like Kim's lawyers for the kids and for the just the divorce settlements and everything, and their exposure to the media and social media, and I'm sure that that's not healthy.
No.
So I'm sure that with the remarks about the Jewish people, I don't think making any comment about Jews is that's like, it's not necessarily anti-Semitism, because like you can just talk about them like historically, like for example, like Karl Marx was a Jew, so it's like, am I insinuating that Jews are the problems behind communism? Well, I mean, he was like one of the arguably founders of modern day communist manifesto stuff, but I mean, like, that's not because of his religion, because he wasn't a practicing Jew in terms of religion. So there is some, you have to dichotomize a lot of the culture with the religion with the ethnicity.
Yeah. So don't just because a bunch of Hollywood producers are Jewish. I just mean go into Pittsburgh and shoot up a synagogue that has like no ties to Hollywood or any kind of banking like whatsoever. It's like it's kind of a dumb thing to make that correlation that a lot of people don't seem to understand. But one final thing about this topic that I wanted to get to before we move on here is that I think the biggest reason why there's so many people freaking out about Kanye West, and it doesn't really have much to do about what he says, is that he's using their own playbook against them. And it's because Kanye West has a massive following online, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever the case is. He has a massive following online. He has for years. The way that, Hollywood, especially when it comes to musicians and actors, things of that nature, they like using influence to get people to do what they want. So that's why you'll have these actors who are like, oh, we're going to do an abortion fundraiser, or we're going to do a fundraiser for Black Lives Matter. And they use celebrity power to do so because they think, well, if this celebrity has an outreach of 50 million people, that means that's 50 million people that we can control with our politics, right? But the second someone with big influence uses their power to go against their narrative, go against their agenda, they freak out, right? This is why they freak out against guys like Elon Musk. This is why they freak out against guys like Kanye West, Donald Trump when he was on social media. That's why they had such a capitulation about him, is that They don't like people with big influences using their platforms to say things that they don't like, and that's essentially what this whole thing comes down to. Is because they don't want people to listen to Kanye West and think to themselves, "Oh, well, maybe Black Lives Matter isn't a scam. Maybe I should ask for my money back. Why are they getting mansions in Malibu while other people are just getting killed around the country?" They don't want people to go down that rabbit hole and ask those type of questions, which is why they're trying as hard as they can to silence him so he can't say anything more that will get people talking.
Yeah,
You
that's
see this
true
with
too,
Kyrie
like a
Irving too.
political sort of element.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Rob.
I just wanted to say, yeah, you see this with Kyrie Irving too, with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, giving him shit and saying that he should be ashamed of himself for not taking the vaccination because he's a role model for so many kids. And it's like, no, he's an amazing role model because he literally forfeited salary, a championship run with his team, which, he came back and they're going to try to run it back this season. But like he gave up so much basically to say, no, I don't want this in my body and you can't force me to take it. He decided that he wasn't going to be coerced into a decision.
Yeah. And in a completely unrelated note, apparently video games are now causing heart attacks in children all of a sudden. We went all of these years with video games, almost 40, 50 years of video games, and now all of a sudden it's causing heart attacks. I wonder what changed in the last 12 months. We may never know the answer to that question. So... Well, yeah, so like I said, Kanye, he's going to be saying a whole bunch of other things. We don't know how far this saga is going to go, if they're going to try to completely unperson him off of social media or not, but we'll keep that one until as the weeks go on. Let's move over to this story real quick. And this was a very interesting story that caught my eye, and not a lot of people really talked about it. And it was there was a ongoing legal battle that's happening right now with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, where Angelina Jolie alleges that Brad Pitt allegedly beat her and choked their kids. And so this apparently happened back in 2016. So this was years ago. I'm gonna run down the details of this suit. So this is a counter lawsuit against Brad Pitt for an attack. They said he was physically abusive towards her and two of their children on a private jet about 6 years ago. So Jolie countered a countersuit against Brad Pitt for the ongoing legal battle over. I guess it's the Château. It's a French estate, so I'm assuming this is a property here, and a winery where the couple acquired more than a decade ago. The filing, which was obtained by Variety, reportedly reveals that Brad Pitt got into a physical altercation with not only Jolie but their kids. This was on a flight from France to California back in 2016. Here's the details here. So it says the countersuit says that Pitt choked one of their children and struck another one in the face, grabbed Jolie by the head and shook her during the 2016 incident. Jolie's lawyers then states that the dispute started on the on the plane's bathroom after Pitt accused her of being too differential towards their kids. Pitt allegedly grabbed her by the head and shook her, and then grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her again before pushing her to the bathroom stall. Pitt then punched the ceiling of the plane numerous times, prompting Jolie to leave the bathroom. The lawsuit files that he then got physical with one of their kids. He said one of the kids tried to verbally defend Jolie, which then Pitt lunged at his own kid, grabbed him, get behind him to stop him. To get Jolie off of his back, Pitt threw himself backwards into the plane's seats, injuring Jolie's back and elbow. The children rushed to her defense before it was over. Pitt choked one of the children and struck another one in the face. Some of the children pleaded with Pitt to stop. They were all frightened. They were all crying. As of right now, there's been no follow-up on these allegations that I've heard of, but you think that this would be a pretty big story coming off the heels of everything we just went through with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and that whole shitstorm of a story. And for these, I guess, allegations kind of just like squeak by, a lot of the, I guess, media outlets kind of shows you like maybe there's something going on here that people should be paying a little bit more attention to on the, especially considering the fact that we just had Nick Cicada get banned off of YouTube. I know he's back now, but he was banned off of there. I think he's still banned on Twitter for following these type of cases as well. So I got a good feeling that there's some things going on in Hollywood that maybe they don't want certain YouTubers to cover. Maybe this is one of them. Just hearing the allegations off of this report from Variety, what is kind of your thoughts about this whole thing? I guess we'll start here with Pete and then go around.
Oh, I get to go. I'm first in line this time. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I believe my buddy Andy Signori over at Popcorn Planet is covering this. So the people like him, they know these stories way better than I do. But I will attempt to divine out what is happening here. Part of the problem is, so the account is really detailed. Part of the two factors of problems is, number one, you do have to consider backgrounds. These people do work in Hollywood. This was kind of concerned with like Amber Heard, was like, these people are storytellers. They have access to lots of capital. They can get the best lawyers. They can play these things out. They can take more legal risks in court than you or I could. The other problem is that family courts are designed for antagonism. They are meant to put the two parties, in this case the parents, against each other. And so that encourages more elaborate tales. It includes stronger statements to try to gain control of assets, the children. However, so it makes these kind of cases very difficult to say what being said here is real and what isn't. The fact that it is so specific kind of makes you feel like maybe there is something to this. Mm-hmm. But it's just impossible to tell. It is awful to see, because this is one of these couples that had long been touted as one of the normal people in Hollywood. They were the ones that had it together. They weren't going to, they were still married. They had kids. They're handling life well. And I guess it turns out that people in Hollywood aren't much better than anyone else. They have just as many problems. And, sometimes, like we talked about last week, you can be in a gilded cage. Sometimes the very things that you think would be so wonderful, the money, the power, the access, they actually turn out to be something that can, end up choking yourself with.
Yeah, and just a quick little point on Pete's point. It's like, notice that all the quote unquote model couples in Hollywood that people propped up for like 20 years, like going back to the day, you notice that slowly but surely all those relationships are just like falling apart one after another. Because remember, it wasn't that long ago when we all thought that Will and Jada had the perfect Hollywood relationship until that house of cards came tumbling down as well.
Seriously.
So, yeah.
Dang.
That woman is sick and twisted in ways that are just pure disturbing.
Well, Orange Hat, what are your thoughts on this story?
I'm calling bullshit on Angelina Jolie. And here's why. You're telling me back in 2016, when the Me Too movement was pretty much just starting, like just getting its feet and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that an allegation of Brad Pitt putting his hands on the necks of children would not have made news? I am calling extreme bullshit here, folks. If a celebrity put their hands in a harmful way on a child's neck, that is in the newspaper the week of that incident.
Well, I would say this. I understand your point, but let me play devil's advocate here. Hollywood for years covered up all the abuse allegations of Harvey Weinstein. You don't think that they would cover up an abuse allegation against Brad Pitt for 6 years?
Brad Pitt against his children? There's a very big difference between a casting couch allegation and a child abuse allegation. There's a very big difference.
Well, let's be honest. Hollywood doesn't have the best track record when it comes to child abuse.
No, they don't. So. But I'm telling you right now, when people are also what was going on during 2016, the whole grab and buy the P word. And you're telling me that all the men, it was open season on men during that time, folks. Yeah. I'm sorry. I am having a very hard time.
Well, Brad Pitt would have been like prime meat at that time. He would have been like the perfect target for this.
He would have perfectly.
Like Angelina
They should have
Jolie
gone
was
after him
desperate for
then.
money and clout
And
or something.
she should have gone about this at the time of it happening, because now, one, you'll never be able to prove it. That's the problem with the Me Too movement and with all these women coming out making all these allegations saying these things happened years ago. Look, I understand trauma. I've lived through trauma that I don't like to talk about at times. But I'm telling you now, if a person can drudge it up years later, they should have been able to drudge it up at the time of. Now, I'm not diminishing any of the crap that has happened to women or children or whatever. I am not. I myself am a domestic abuse survivor. So, yeah. I brought that shit up the day or the night it happened to a police officer. So, let me just tell you, a lot of people will say, well, you're a guy, so it's probably easier. Women have to live with shame. Do you know how when people say that, it's like women have to live with the shame? If a man gets beaten by a woman, look what just happened over this last year.
Yeah.
There was a guy who was beaten by his wife several times, and she even challenged him. You go tell the world. And look what happened. Everybody his career got ruined until after court. So I'm sorry, but in this case where this allegedly happened, where he was on a plane, is this a private jet? Or was this a commercial jet?
It has to be a private jet. If it's Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, it has to be private.
If it's a private jet, they're definitely not going to be able to prove it. Her entire case is based on speculation and hearsay. I'm not a legal expert, but I do know well enough that speculation and hearsay will not hold up in a court of law. Also, like I said, if he had done this to his children, I'm telling you flat out, I just have a very strong feeling that she would have brought this at the time. She is simply, in my opinion, and folks, I'm clarifying, this is only my opinion. I believe that she's essentially pulling an Amber Heard.
Didn't she
Angelina Jolie should be ashamed of herself.
Well, didn't Angelina Jolie get accused of doing some really funky shit to her kids?
I don't know.
I'm unaware of that, to be quite honest. I would have to look into it.
I think
but
there
it wouldn't
was
surprise
something
me
regarding one of like the older kids, maybe the girl, but I don't remember specifically what it was. But I think there is something to that. Yeah.
Look,
considering how
But like what I was
considering
trying to say
how
is that,
dark Hollywood is.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is that, like, it really seems like Angelina Jolie is just doing this out of desperation because she's losing her case. And all this is going to do is make things look worse for her, especially if I'm right and there was some nasty allegations against her.
Yeah. Oh, Rick. Well, I'm not Rick. Rob, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I don't have, because I don't know much about the case. I just kind of doubt Angelina Jolie in general, because Brad Pitt has a reputation of just kind of being a laid back pothead. Like he in Hollywood, even for years, going back to the 90s, he's a very kind of relaxed individual on a personal level. So I would be surprised if this ended up being true. Having said that, you should go to pretty far lengths to be able to prove it. And I don't think she's going to be able to do that. So at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know why you would bring this up, though. It's just like, is your career no longer relevant? Yes. So I don't know. It makes me sad for the kids that they have to be kind of dragged through it, but
yeah,
it's what she wants to do.
I mean, and I'm kind of at the point with Hollywood where it's like I can see both sides being true. Like I can see Brad Pitt snapping on his wife and kids in this manner. I can also see Angelina Jolie being completely full of shit. It's like, you don't really know what's going on in this little world in entertainment, because they only show you exactly what they want you to see. So it's kind of hard to get a good read on like what is true and what's just total bullshit these days. But speaking of total bullshit, let's go ahead and invite our new guy in here. Rick, how you doing today? Did you like that intro?
That's probably one of the nicer intros that I've gotten from you. Thank you. I'm doing good. Yeah, just got back from. Just left work, trying to check the scores, see how things are going. So.
Oh, your boys, the Astros, came back and won in the ninth inning today.
They're
and
not
I was
my
not
boys.
happy about it.
They're not my boys, and I'm not happy about it either. Well, we're barely in game one, so I'm not worried. Not yet. Not yet.
I like how you say "we," like all of a sudden you're a Mariners fan. Like, are you and Rob teaming up now for part of the Pacific
Well,
Northwest?
I have a special fondness for one of the Mariners players when he was with the Chihuahuas. So
Oh God,
I got one
Chihuahua.
of his jerseys.
Well, hey Johnson, how you doing?
Hey,
Rick,
came in, so
Rick, real quick before we move on, do you have any feelings towards this story about Angelina Jolie alleging abuse against Brad Pitt? Do you feel one way or another about this story?
no, I feel I do feel for the kids. If this is true, they should not go through physical abuse or any kind of abuse. But it's going to be hard to prove because unless one of the kids uh, verifies it and says, "Oh yes, Brad Pitt was slapping me around or choking me or whatever he's alleged to do,"
Yeah.
we're never going to have we're never going to have solid evidence. So it's going to ruin both their reputations, perhaps. I mean, they might not have a lingering effect on either of their careers. Although he's pushing 60, I think, and she's like pushing 50, I think. So it's not like they're going to be major draws. We saw that with Bullet Train that that didn't have a lot of long lasting power. So, but ultimately, I hope that the kids do well. I wish them the best. That's my view.
Society
that's
is it okay if I jump in? I was just going
go
through
ahead.
my notes here. So yeah, so little updates. So the rumors are talking about Angelina claimed it. So Angelina Jolie has claimed since 2012 that there was some kind of domestic abuse going. It was rumored before that, I guess. Maybe that means that there's more legitimacy to it. I have no idea. I would say also that Orange Hat did say that things went fly. It's hearsay. Unfortunately, the problem is it's family court, and the only one you need to convince is the judge. And sometimes, even if really one party has more solidly decided something, the judge would like split the baby. And family court's kind of corrupt because there are all kinds of weird relationships between the prosecutors, the defense, the judge, the experts the judge puts out to speak with the kids. So who knows what could be happening? I think because it's older, because this has longer been alleged, maybe it might be true, but I have no idea. But could this thing go in a weird direction where they side with Jolie and Brad Pitt loses everything? Yeah, that's totally possible. I mean, worse things have happened. If you ever want to go down a terrible rabbit hole, look up family courts, in particular with men. It's pretty sad stuff.
Yep. Don't procreate, guys. Don't have any offspring. Don't have any hope for the future. Okay.
Or at the very least, stop procreating with the first chick that you see who's gonna ruin your life in 20 years. Like maybe be just a little more thorough before you decide, oh, we're gonna have kids now.
Oh yeah, and I don't mean to cut any of you guys off. I was just adding it since you guys already brought up and you were asking like how long is this going on. So
No, that's fine. Yeah. No, I have no problem with that. Here's the thing: as far as this story goes, I would keep my eye on this story towards the end of the year because we all know Brad Pitt actually has a pretty big movie coming out towards Christmas time called Babylon. And when I'm dealing with a story like this, what I've noticed, I don't know if it's strategic or not, but we tend to get more uncomfortable details about celebrities when they have a movie coming out, and then that's when you see the attack of people trying to either sabotage them or cancel them before their movie hits. I know we just had that with David O. Russell, where people were bringing up a bunch of allegations that happened with him right as his movie was coming out, and I think that led to a lot of negative reviews, even though that film itself was just garbage. I mean, it just wasn't a good film. But yeah, so I would just keep an eye on this one because you may hear a little bit more about it as the year goes on.
They will not allow anyone who does those junkets to ask him about that. They will not.
No one from the press is going to ask him about this. It's going to have to be some kind of like salacious detail that just leaks to the media, and it's just like a cloud that hovers around the film. No one's going to ask him in a press junket. How do you feel about the allegation that you beat your kids? Like, yeah, this is not going to happen. So let's move on from Brad Pitt allegedly beating his children to Scarlett Johansson literally getting beat by the wall because she came out with some very interesting statements earlier today about being hypersexualized when she was a young actress. And I just want to go ahead and start off by saying this. It feels like every actress in Hollywood, when she hits about that 35-year-old range, ends up doing an article just like this, where she's saying that, oh, when I was younger in Hollywood, people hypersexualized me and I was viewed as a sex symbol and I didn't like it. And it was like, okay, you're saying that now when you're like 35 years old, but when you were taking advantage of this when you were in your early 20s, you didn't hear a single complaint about, oh my God, people are sexualizing me. Why is this a problem? But Scarlett Johansson, who's now 37 years old, and I think it's pretty safe to say maybe her best days are behind her. Let's just put it in a very nice bow there, saying that she's opening up about the time that she was a young actress and she feel like she's been misrepresented since a child. So the Black Widow actress came out and said that I became kind of objectified and pigeonholed in this way where I felt like I wasn't getting offers to work for things that I wanted to do. I remember thinking to myself, I think people think that I'm 40 years old. It somehow stopped being something that was desirable and something that I was fighting against. Now, Scarlett Johansson said her first movie appearance was in the film North back when she was like 9 years old. And people always assumed that she was older than she actually was. Says, because I think everyone thought I was older, that I'd been acting for a long time. I got pigeonholed into this weird hypersexualized thing. I felt like my career was over, she said on the podcast, that that's the kind of career that you want to have, that these are the roles that you played. And it's like, is this it? She goes, says the runaway is not that long. It was such a scary time for me. It was weird. I was like, is this it? This is very weird quotation marks they put on here. Oh yeah, I contribute a lot of that to the fact that people thought that I was much older than I was. Then she also goes to talk about the fact that in the film Lost in Translation, which I think was kind of like her big breakout movie, when she played a 22-year-old woman when she was just 17, she says, now I see a lot of actors that are in their 20s. It feels like they're allowed to be these different things. It's another time, too. We're not allowed to really pigeonhole other actors anymore, thankfully, right? People are much more dynamic. Now, she does go on to make like a generalized statement here about like the patriarchy and things of that nature, which is not a surprise. I think she says here that we live in that patriarchy, and I feel like there's a fundamental reality that a woman's condition that will always, even if those 600 men are not aggressively necessarily as much as they should have been a minute ago, it's still fundamentally there. It's so baked into our culture and society. It's hard for me to imagine ever being that adamant, being in that to imagine ever being not that element, she said. So Derek said she went on to talk about a lot of her earlier roles and the way that she was portrayed earlier in her career. she's talking about a time, especially towards that was it the Lost in Translation movie with Bill Murray, about a time where she really started blowing up in Hollywood, and we're talking about another person who was very close to Harvey Weinstein during those times before people exposed exactly the type of guy that he was. And then, like I said, you didn't really hear a lot of these complaints when she was in, let's say, Black Widow, or She's Not That Into You, and some other roles that she, let's just say, had no problem with making money off of her hypersexualized looks. And there was a lot of them, especially around that time as well. So I want to start with Orange Hat here and just kind of like move down. And I think you even talked about this, Orange Hat, in our chat. Do you think that this is just a typical symptom of an actress hitting that 30-year-old wall, or do you think there's something more here about how actresses always seem to come out and make this statement once they hit around this age period?
Honestly, I think that she came out with this again because people didn't pay attention the first time and she's kind of bitching about it. Because I seem to remember her making these very same statements either earlier this year or last year. And honestly, you chose to do these roles. You agreed to them. And to quote one of those bikers named Buck in Deadpool, I'd hit that. But the thing is, in all seriousness,
Spencer would too,
she
apparently.
is, yeah, she honestly, she's my age. She's 37.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, now that she's a mother, she's thinking differently. She's having regrets. What am I going to tell my kid when I grew up? You can tell her that you were a freaking super spy. You can tell her that you played a literal human becoming a god, like she did in Lucy. You could tell her all sorts of things. But now it seems that you're going to tell your kid, I was hypersexualized and a victim of Hollywood. No, that is absolutely the wrong thing you should tell her. Yes, possibly there was some weird shit that happened when she was coming out or coming up in Hollywood. But I guarantee you that if you regret doing the roles that you did, you're only going to make yourself look like a fool. Because, one, again, you agreed to those roles. You agreed to play or to adhere to the direction of your boss, the director. And if you had a problem, you should have raised it then. As for characters like Black Widow, what do we know about Black Widow? Oh, right, she's a super spy. What did female spies throughout history do in order to maintain their cover? They used their feminine wiles. They used their sexuality because, believe it or not, sexuality is power back in those days. And even nowadays, if women really want to think about it, instead of wanting to be men all the time, like they want to do in current Hollywood, maybe they should actually think about the fact that women actually do have a lot more power than they think. Considering, yes, they are the fairer sex and whatnot, but it's like, now you've given yourself ultimate power because nobody is going to even want to touch you. Congratulations. But as for her her being like 37 and all, her best years may be behind her, but honestly, I think she can have a few more years to go. She's still pretty attractive in my opinion, but honestly, I don't think she's going to want to make anything of it because she's bitching that she's too hot and that she was too sexualized.
Yeah, and let's look. I don't want to start any Hollywood rumors here, but there's been talks for a very, very long time now that let's just say that Scarlett Johansson had no problem using her sexuality to get ahead in Hollywood during those years that she's now complaining about, and we'll just leave it at that. Rob, what is kind of your take on this whole thing with Scarlett Johansson coming out once again saying that, oh, the people over sexualized me, even though you were technically like one of the biggest sex symbols in the 2000s and up to, you could say, halfway to 2010s as well.
Well, I mean, she's basically been a leading lady for 20 years. She's basically been up for those main leading lady roles, Oscar nominated performances, whatever. I mean, she hasn't won. I mean, she hasn't necessarily made herself stand apart from her competition, but she's been in the running for all of those roles, for all those performances. She did Lost in Translation. She did a Woody Allen movie called Match Point, which is very good, in 2005. And she, you know, she's been at the forefront of making money and using and being an attractive woman in movies that people want to see, that isn't terribly annoying. So I mean, all this, I've liked Scarlett Johansson for most of the time that she's had a career. But she also spent 7 years playing Black Widow, a nothing character, for basically a nice paycheck. So you know, it's like
very
you really
nice.
have
Going on like 12 years actually. She played Black Widow.
Right, but I'm just like thinking in terms of the time spent on set and whatever. It's just like and premieres and all that. It's like you just wasted all that time when you could have been exploring, you know, artistic projects you believed in, or working with directors you loved or believed in, whatever, or empowering other actresses by working with them, or whatever the situation might have been. But it's like this seems like a coordinated PR thing, because a lot of other actresses are saying this very same thing. Amanda Seyfried said this. I mean, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I've seen this in the last
Anne Hathaway.
few months.
There's been a number of them.
So it's just like, okay, this seems just coordinated and forced, and like, oh, I was sexualized when I was. It's Hollywood, and you're a woman. Congratulations on putting that together.
Yeah. Give it a couple more years, and Margot Robbie going to make the exact same statements. So we'll have to talk about her. But
I will say, like, for what it's worth, it is part of growing up when you start to realize how, like, easily fooled you were as a kid, or how silly some of your decisions are. I mean, like, it's like one of the things that I do through my books that I write and stuff is I have a little grant every month that if you have student loan debt and you want some relief, I give out scholarships, like grants to people. Like I give out free money, like you know, after verifying that you're like a real person and stuff. But it's like, like there's a lot of regret that comes with being young and like staking your future on certain things. And I think with all the pretty things that go on in Hollywood, because I mean, I live near Atlanta. I know there's like Pinewood Studios and Legendary Studios, and there's a lot of, I mean, Tyler Perry studios down here. It's like there's a lot of things that make that life really attractive to the average person, and really, you know, fun. And it's always about the next job. And it's like, I know people who work in the industry, and that's exactly how it is. It's like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do for the next job, or oh, I got my next job lined up. I'm excited, you know, and it goes on and on and on like that. And I mean, I know people who have been in the industry for years, and that's how it is. I mean, nobody like famous or anything, but like, you know, I mean, they've worked with some really interesting projects and stuff. So part of it is you're young, you don't know what you're getting into. And this is kind of reaching into the porn topic of like, you don't understand how these things can affect you all the time. And it's only when you're older, as you grow up and you mature and you have more experience with the world, that you start to realize how some of it is really detrimental. And how at this particular time, when you're facing the end of that youth and beauty train, that you start to reassess, is this what you want your legacy to be? And especially because she has children, I'm sure that's not what she wants. You know, you don't want, no, I don't think anybody wants their daughter to grow up to be a porn star. So, or the equivalent of one with, you know,
the casting couch.
Yeah. So I'm sure some of that is this. And of course, the patriarchy is always just kind of an easy target for, oh, my career is flailing and who am I going to blame? Well, it's obviously the patriarchy, because even if I'm not beautiful, I should have more roles. I should be able to keep my career that I've built on using my youth and beauty to get what I wanted. Yeah. So no, it doesn't work like that.
But this really frustrates me, because it's like they're not looking at the other side of the thing and what they are doing. They are basically shaming people. Well, it's shaming women, really, and shaming young girls. That's what Scarlett Johansson is doing to, if she has girls, doing to them. because she was playing femme fatale characters, and like a lot of girls look up to Black Widow, and they see her as a strong character and a beautiful, strong character. No one wants to be like these ugly ass Karens. No, that's why a lot of people have switched from watching Western cartoons to anime because they don't like these ugly ass characters. Nah, it's all about being like beautiful and strong. And the message that a lot of these people in Hollywood are saying, and that's why I hate the body positive movement so much, is that you can't be strong and beautiful. No, you can be ugly and strong, but you can't and have like a masculine look and be strong and smart, but you can't be beautiful and busty or anything and be strong or smart anymore. You have to be stupid if you have that.
It's always been like a shortcut for storytelling, especially with the visual arts, to be a beautiful person, even if you like to reflect your inner light, so to speak. Though, like, and it's probably more of an animation thing than like.
Well, like, I mean, like in live action, I mean, we had shows. It was progressing. I mean, we had like Charlie's Angels, for example. We were getting more and more progressive shows where women were able to be smart and be beautiful at the same time. And even Black
Police
Widow was
Woman
one of them.
comes to mind. And
What was that?
Bionic Woman. The
Yeah.
Police Woman and Bionic Woman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now you
Well,
and also,
Supergirl.
of course, I almost forgot Terminator, an Alien. You could be strong and you could be still look beautiful, but now they're just like we've regressed to a point where it's like, nope, you can't do that no more. You have to be covered up. You can't if unless you're overweight and ugly, nah, you can't show off your body no more, because then otherwise,
Yeah.
Sexualized. You're being sexualized. It's like, what?
It's the idea that, you know, we need to tear down beauty standards to make things more equal and blah blah blah. So that means that the hot women need to not look as hot, and then we need to prop up women who are not hot and pretend like they're hot now. So it's the whole kind of thing. We're gonna tear down beauty standards and destroy the male gaze. It's like, okay, good luck with that.
Well, I mean,
And because of that, we got people like Lizzo.
They want the male gaze for themselves when they're never going to get the male gaze.
No.
Well, what about female gaze?
Highlight the feminine. I mean, like it's part of the feminist movement, like fourth wave feminism, which I just call it cultural waterboarding at this point now.
Oh yeah,
like, you can't be a feminine woman and be strong.
Yeah. Oh, the old school feminists hate the modern wave feminists because the modern wave feminists are just are tearing everything down.
But by the way,
equality, they want superiority.
By the way, Johnson,
patriarchy. That's what they're doing. They're really being the patriarchy and tearing women down and trying to like regress everything back to where it was pre the feminist movement. They just don't realize it because they're stupid.
Yeah, we're gonna make an Iraq-like turn very very soon here, one way or another. Pete and Rick, obviously, you guys are gonna handle this situation much nicer than everyone else, which is why I waited to pick you guys last. What was your final thoughts on this whole thing with Scarlett Johansson? I'll start with Rick, and then we'll wrap it up with Pete.
I'm reminded of what Jill St. John was asked when she was asked about being a Bond girl. And the interviewer asked her, some people think that, the Bond girl character or Bond woman that they wanted to push was offensive or sexist or that in the women, some of the other women regret the role or, say that. And she was asked, well, what do you think? Do you think it's offensive or do you think women should have taken it? And she replied, well, if they felt that way, then they shouldn't have taken the role. They agreed to act in these roles and they read the scripts. What concerns me is that it almost makes it look like she in this case ScarJo, and I do like calling her ScarJo, she had all her agency taken away from her, that she was completely powerless. Maybe when she was younger, and by the way, I would not be bragging about my first film was North, but that's for another conversation. But yes, okay, when she was 9, maybe even 19, 17, you're young, you don't have, you're not completely sharp on things. But now that you're in your 20s and your early 30s, you agree to the publicity, you agree to the roles, you agree to how you're being portrayed. At a certain point, you would have to say, I don't want this to I don't want this to be my image. Women, right or wrong, have always had that. There have been sex symbols from the beginning of cinema. So I mean, I don't think someone like an Elizabeth Taylor or Grace Kelly would go on about how they were sexualized. They were seen as beautiful women. They were sex symbols, but I don't think that they would say, "Oh well, because I was seen as one of the most beautiful women in the world. Now I'm powerless." Far from it. They were quite powerful in their way. I would just argue with Scarlett Johansson. Uh, you have I think she is a talented actress. But now that you've reaching 40, if you think you're being sexualized, you have the opportunity to get character parts, which is what actresses go through. You had that with Betty Grable when she recognized in How to Marry a Millionaire that Marilyn Monroe was going to be the new hot young thing. So she was very graceful about it and said, "All right, I've had my time. I've had my turn on the dance floor, but now it's time for you to come up and be the new sex goddess. So I'm going to surrender gracefully." The same thing happened with Ginger Rogers, and now it's going to be Scarlett Johansson's turn to, if she wants to, accept the fact that she's not going to be like this great sex symbol that she in part agreed to be when she accepted the roles and agreed to the publicities. Then yeah, it's her time to accept that and focus on the acting, which she's capable of doing. But at the same time, kind of throwing in this, there were some sites that had like countdowns where they're like counting down to when Lindsay Lohan turned 18. Those things I found very creepy.
Yeah.
uh, I think they also had them for some men as well. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was that weird period where people were like waiting for like the Olsen twins to turn 18. I was like, why? They're
Justin
not even
Bieber as
attractive.
well.
They're not even attractive. Like, why would you wait on that? It's a waste of
yeah,
time.
so those were bizarre. But those are just my 4 cents because I know I talk a lot.
Pete, any last topic word on this one?
ScarJo, wonderful actress, very talented. Loved her in Jojo Rabbit. She is the wrong person for this. I don't know who the right person is, but it's not her. Look, Hollywood, like history, works in heaps. Okay, the people you see at the top, the ones in the Avengers films, those are the ones that get to sit on top of the mountain of skulls. Okay, all those people who work so hard, dedicate their lives to get ahead of Hollywood, they're just littered. They're just all over the place. All the broken dreams, all the people who lost their livelihoods, all the people who screwed themselves up or came screwed up. It's a messy place and a messy industry. I just think there's a lot of hypocrisy, of course, and a lot of things people don't want to say. I think if people really want a conversation about how we treat men and women in public roles, that's fine, but it's not just Hollywood. I mean, even in media, conservative media, there are things kind of similar to the casting couch. There are major problems. You think the ladies on Fox News that they choose the most hygienic looking because their talent? No, that's not how it works. But I don't think we kind of want this. And the things that ScarJo's selling here is more the kind of the post-Weinstein truths that we're allowed to say. But if you were to ask them to actually make a difference, like, ScarJo, you have a problem with this. Okay, then why? How about you use your influence, get some of these, these young, little less nice-looking ladies that come off the Greyhound bus in East LA. Maybe you help them get a job, but no, they're not doing that. They don't want to have to deal with action. And lastly, there's no way she says any of this to her daughter. This is one of those. This is the outside thing we say, and when we say something else when we're inside. So I just have a hard time taking any of this all this seriously. And you guys have all made much better points than I have. I mean, I didn't even really know what the wall was until today. So I'm
It's just
I'm
a shit
naive.
talking, term. So
Yeah. So some people hit the
I'm
wall, and some
innocent.
people get jumped by the wall in the parking lot. Let's just put it that way.
It's undefeated, just like life.
Yeah, except she
Yeah,
didn't even
fuck.
look to, or she didn't even look to even try to jump. She just ran square into it, thinking she'd plow right through it.
Yeah, like it was like Looney Tunes rules or something like that. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, she
So
kinda
here,
went
let's
lean
go.
on me. Sorry.
I was give it some time, and we might get there too. Time for my favorite segment of the show. Let's talk about She-Hulk, and this week is the last episode of She-Hulk. I can only pray that there'll never be another episode after this week. I would not be surprised to see if Disney decides to be a bunch of dicks and just do a second season where they double down on all the shit that didn't work here on this one. But here we want to talk about an article that it came out on the Bounding here. And this was the article that She-Hulk appears to model members of the misogynist antagonist group and Intelligentsia after Intelligentsia after YouTuber Doomcock. Now, for those of you guys who don't watch She-Hulk, and thank God you guys don't, essentially the final episode is setting up a battle with this internet group of man babies, as the show has directly referred to them as, and they hate She-Hulk because she's a girl version of Hulk. So there's a lot of not so subtle, right on the nose lampooning on a lot of, I guess you could say, right-wing YouTubers or people who criticize the series and things of that nature, saying that, oh, well, if you don't like the show, then you're a man baby, you're an incel, you're the person on the internet who wouldn't say that to She-Hulk's face because she doesn't exist. But apparently they modeled one of the mask here on the villains after the YouTuber Doomcock. Or did they? I'm actually want to give the floor here to Mr. Orange Hat because I know Orange, you had a little thing that you wanted to talk about regarding this article in detail. So I'm just going to let you have the floor here and talk about why you don't believe that Doomcock was the inspiration of this masking. So go ahead.
First, anybody who drew the comparison to Doomcock, I did a stream yesterday, and yes, I was quite harsh in my opinion, and that Doomcock needs to check his ego at the door, but also, no offense, Spencer, I know you're still in the chat, you should have did a little bit more research because Intelligentsia is actually a Marvel-based group. It's actually, its origins are found in Marvel. And just like all of the MCU, they have taken groups like Hydra. They have taken villains like the Red Skull. They've taken all these different great characters that we all know to be great villains and whatnot in the comics, and they've all dumbed them down to a one-shot kill-off. There you go, next. However, Intelligentsia is basically an anti-Hulk, meaning they don't even like the Hulk in the comics. They're basically a dark version of the Illuminati. And guess who was a former member of Intelligentsia? Well, if you really look at the color scheme of those characters in that episode, green hoodies, the mask, which looked absolutely nothing like Doomcock's face or mask or whatever, it actually looked a lot more like reminiscent to Dr. Doom. And when everybody brought their shit to Doomcock saying, "Oh my God, they're attacking you," instead of actually taking a step back, which Doomcock should have done, he actually made it worse. He's like, "Oh, they attacked me. They noticed us. We're winning." No, you fool. What you should have done with a person that has as big as a following as you do, you should have been like, no, let's just take a beat here, folks. I mean, thanks for the support, but let's do a little bit of research. This looks a little bit more like Dr. Doom to me, not Doomcock. Also, I don't see how this has anything to do with me. Because not only did he make himself look bad, like an idiot, plain and simple. He made himself look like an idiot. He also made every one of us who are trying to call out Hollywood for all their crap look like idiots too, because he's got a lot of followers. I'm not saying all of his followers are stupid. I'm not going to pull a Kinnell. I'm not going to say any of that. I'm simply going to say they should have thought about it a little more before they immediately say, oh my gosh, they just went after Doomcock, and then Doomcock does this and basically gives himself a slap on the back saying, oh my God, we're winning. Finally, they're noticing us. We're a threat. They've noticed us long before this episode of She-Hulk, Doomcock. And also, they don't care because they're continuing to do what they're doing. Yes, people are turning away, and maybe after enough people turn away, they will actually probably do a little bit of self-reflection. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I am going to say, no offense to Bounty, I'm not saying this with any malice at all. A little bit of more or research should have went into this article before it being released, because it sounded like a puff piece and it did nobody on YouTube any favors.
Now, let me say this, because there's a couple of points that I want to make here. First one, I did not see Doomcock's reaction to him. I don't typically follow Doomcock, so whatever he said on his end, I have no recollection of because I didn't see it. So the argument here is whether they were basing this off of Doctor Doom or whether they were actually trying to essentially mock Doomcock and other YouTubers by making them the central villain in the series. Now, you said that that this group in this series is supposed to be like an anti-Hulk group, but that's not how they're portrayed like in the show, because obviously, as we've gone on multiple times throughout the weeks covering this whole thing, they just been going after men in general. It's been their primary target, but of course, men that complain about female-led comic books and stuff like that, that's where where they base this whole thing off of. Now, I know a lot of people have actually inferred that maybe there's going to be like a Doctor Doom tease, which I personally don't see happening because they're not planning. As a matter of fact, they just announced they're pushing back Fantastic Four to like 2025. So I don't think the Doctor Doom thing is going to materialize anytime soon. If it does, it'll be very, very stupid of them. So Spencer is saying here that Doomcock has based his mask on Doctor Doom. So I guess the argument here is, did the show, obviously we can't answer that because we don't know, we're not in the writer's room, but did the show base their mask off of Doctor Doom, or did they actually base it off of Doomcock, who based his mask off of Doctor Doom? The question here is that who's the true target here? We probably won't know officially who the true target here is until the final episode, where we see where this whole thing is actually going. But I don't see the Doctor Doom time, and that's what they were planning on doing in the show. So you could argue that that they, like I said, they're just trying to mock Doomcock, and then Doomcock went and did whatever he did on his YouTube channel, saying that, you know, that, oh, they're finally like paying attention to us, or whatever the case is.
I will say this, in my stream the other day, I did also acknowledge it is entirely possible that they did freaking go after Doomcock. I will not discount the possibility. However, I will state that, or not as fact, but as opinion, that there is a very high chance that they don't even know who the hell Doomcock is in that writer's room. Have you seen the intelligence that has went into this show?
It's not good. I mean, that's the problem, though, because I don't even think they would even know who Doctor Doom is, if we're being completely honest with you. These are clearly not people who know anything about the lore of the comic books. They're probably given pre-written notes by Kevin Feige that, hey, we need you to hit at least this note on the final episode so we can set up some other bullshit that's going to be on Disney Plus in the next 6 months here.
I mean, yes, a lot of people are saying in the chat that Doomcock got his whole thing from Victor Von Doomcock, or Victor Van Doomcock, or whatever his name is. Yes, I understand that he is a parody on Doctor Doom. But if you look at the color scheme of the intelligentsia guys on that screen, take also a look at one of the pose, even the hairstyle of one of those characters. If you've ever seen Doctor Doom without a mask in the comics, he's actually got a very proper hairstyle. One of his major poses is cross-armed like this, if he's not doing the whole broad hand up kind of thing, or the grand gesture kind of look. Also, their faces look absolutely nothing like Doomcock's mask. Their faces are more angular. There's no blown up lips. There's no blown up eyes. But they are more human looking, which is actually kind of Doctor Doom's metallic face, yes, has, or it's kind of, in a way, Doctor Doom's face is actually more in the middle of the Doomcock and those masks. Now, if it's based on the whole dropping the voice a couple octaves, fine. That is a correlation with Doomcock. But the green shirts, which also have hoods, plus the masks, and just basically going off of what the MCU has done for 20 years, or not 20 years, but 20 movies and 14 years, it's basically doing the same damn formula. They're taking great things from the comics, turning them into one-offs. Look what they did to the Mandarin. At first, they made him a dumbass terrorist. That wasn't even a terrorist. Then they made him a extremist guy. And then they used the Mandarin. And then he wasn't even the Mandarin then.
Well, 1 second here. I do want to go back to something that Doomcock said regarding this whole thing, but I know Spencer wants to go on because he wants to counter the point that you made about Doomcock and the whole thing with the mask. So jump Spencer on here, and I'll let you guys.
Hey! So I heard you have some issues with my reporting. Orange, you want to talk about it to my face?
I have no problem talking about it to your face, dude. All I'm simply saying is that you should have done a little bit more research.
So you don't get to talk about research because what research is there to do? One, I've talked about how the Intelligentsia is a Marvel-based supergroup many times. I didn't mention it in that specific article because I have related links that can inform you on that. Oh, never mind. Okay. Nobody wants to hear it right now, so I'll leave you guys to it. Never mind. Take it easy.
No, go ahead.
You're fine.
Aw.
I was
willing to listen.
Yeah, we're going to let you go.
What the hell? I was willing to listen to.
I think that was Nerdigans who blamed her for that one. So thanks a lot, Nerdigans. We'll just single-handedly blame you for that one. But I was actually willing to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, I wanted to hear it too because I barely know anything about this, to be honest.
I'm willing to, like I said, I'm willing to have the talk. And if I'm wrong, I'll fucking admit I'm wrong.
By the way, Spencer, he was reacting to what Josh said. He wasn't reacting to what you were saying.
I wasn't commenting at this. I was commenting. Someone had put up on the bottom of the screen, "Get out the popcorn." I thought.
Yeah, it was Josh. That's what I say. He was commenting on what Josh said, not what Spencer was saying. So
there's a delay, I think, between what I'm seeing and what you're seeing with the camera.
All right, then. Well, he's back on. So.
Hi. I'll come back. But again, Nerdigans, it was you that made me get off because if you're gonna treat it like girls are fighting, then why should I come on here and be serious? All right. So first of all, Orange Hat, I take serious issue with the fact that you're saying I don't do any research. First of all, that's all I do for my job. Number one, with the Intelligentsia, I've talked about it multiple times in Bounding articles, talked about where they originated from. They're in the related links because in articles, you don't overdump every piece of information on the reader every time. That's what the related links are there for. Second, yes, I understand what you're saying with, they're look at them. They're based on Dr. Doom. But I need you to honestly, get over your bias against Doomcock. Because you know what? I don't like him either. I think his whole shtick is full of it. Like his whole Kathleen Kennedy's out today. I'm over it too. But you know what? I look at how the She-Hulk writers' room have been interacting with people online, how their rhetoric has been in all these interviews, which again, if you did your research like I have covering the situation, you would know that these writers and these producers are super heavily invested in what's going on online, on online discourses, on all the evil misogynists. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they're trying to take a dig here. And to the point of their masks, you got to get over your thing about Doomcock because those absolutely look like they're trying to evoke it. And the hairstyle, that's not them trying to say Dr. Doom's scarred face. That's them trying to say, incels are all bold and gross looking that's what they're trying to say because nothing about that is Dr. Doom. That none of that, maybe they might link that in at the end, but if you can look me in the eyes and say that there is not a good chance that's a dig at Doomcock, then I don't have any conversation to have here with you.
I have already acknowledged in my stream yesterday, and I will also slightly correct you. I didn't say you did no research. I said you could have done a little bit more. Now, if I am
What
wrong,
more
which
can
indeed,
what more can
as
I
you
have done,
said,
Orange Hat? What
dude,
more research can I do? Everything's already out there. I've covered everything about this. Tell me what
very
what
well, I'm
research I could have
wrong,
done.
and I'll fully admit it. Then I am wrong in this case, and I apologize to you for it.
Thank you.
But also, I've also polled a lot of people on Twitter, not necessarily doing a poll on Twitter, but I've talked with a lot of people who have watched the show, and a lot of them are making the correlation more between Doctor Doom than Doomcock. Also,
Two things can happen at the same time.
Now, yes, that is also indeed true.
So
now, if
that's
I
not
was
an
out of
argument
line,
against it
or
being
if I am
Doomcock.
perceived out of line, very well. I apologize, and I will fully admit I am wrong. Now,
Thank
if
you.
that is indeed what they are doing, I'll fully admit I'm wrong on a stream if I have to. But but when it comes to certain things, now I was unaware of that because I honestly did not see any connection links. That's on me if I didn't.
That is, you didn't do your research.
Exactly. But also,
So let me just jump in here real quick. So the whole argument about whether this is Doomcock or whether this is Doctor Doom, we won't know that until the final episode gets released later this week about where the direction they're going with that. It seems to me that the I guess this crust of Spence's argument is that you're implying that he didn't do any research. You know, he said you should have done more research in terms of saying what could he have done to make that correlation. That's the central argument here.
Yeah.
And I'll fully admit I'm wrong. If he has done his research, then he did his research. I admit
No. I'm asking you, Orange Hat. You're the one saying I didn't do enough research. I'm on my end. I have looked at every interview. I've watched the show. I know what's going on. If you think I've missed research, please tell me what I've missed.
Honestly, I wouldn't know because I don't know what research you looked up.
Well, then you can't come at me and say I haven't done my research. I take high offense to any. The reason I'm here tonight is because normally, you know, I love playing around with you guys in the chat, but the second you start questioning the integrity of either Bounding, myself, or any of our writers, I have a serious issue with that. And right now, you came out and you said, "Oh, this is such a poorly researched article, Spencer. You didn't do any of your research." And right now, you're admitting to me, "Oh, I can't tell you what more you should have researched. I didn't do my research." So you're just getting on a high horse over nothing. And I take high offense to that.
Well, then I apologize.
All right. No, that's all I was looking for. That's cool. We're good then.
Alrighty then.
Do you want to stay on for the last topic here?
Sure. What's the last topic?
Before you jump into the last topic, I will say this as someone who has not heard of Doomcock or has seen the show. I am not familiar with either, but I would not put it past them to have done a parody or kind of to go after Doomcock, because we've seen something similar. If you remember from Don't Worry Darling, where the villain's supposed to be a riff or a comic or kind of drawn on Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, yeah, exactly.
Who, again, I've not heard him. I mean, I've heard of him, but I don't know what he says. So whatever allegory they were drawing went over my head.
But look at Rick. Remember how they presented it too. Remember, it wasn't just like Peterson's philosophy. It was like he's an incel hero. Like they were taking that internet narrative about him and running with that. Like they're totally. What else are they doing while they're on the toilet?
Yes. Can I ask you a question, Spence? Sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, what's up?
Is it possible that they could have simply done the same thing following the same formula of the MCU?
It is absolutely possible. So what do you mean? So yes,
meaning where they take something from the comics and dumb it down completely.
That is absolutely what they're doing. They are taking the intelligentsia from the comics, the super group of all the most intelligent like guys in the villains in the like Marvel universe, and they're turning it into this dumb little group. They're absolutely doing that. I'm not like that is 100% what they're doing. In doing that, they're using like that's how they're dumbing it down. Orange. They're taking this super esteemed group and making it this straw man version of incels who can't even make like good memes. Like those memes are so awful. I think they haunt my dreams.
I will say this as someone who's watched the entire series up to this point. Like I said, last episode's coming up this week. Given the writers who have been attached to this show, I cannot believe in my mind with good faith that these people are setting up some kind of mega arc with any kind of supervillain leading up to the future in any project. I don't even believe this is leading up to another project that they're going to be working on Disney Plus. So considering the fact that the entire tone of this series has been nothing but condescending to men in general, the whole setup for this whole team that they're bringing up here, I understand that there's comic book origins to it, but in the context of this show that they're creating here, I believe that they're just using it just to take a shot at men. I don't believe there's any more to it than that. Like, I think naturally we want to believe that there has to be more to this, that there has to be something else to this, but you give the benefit of the doubt to people like that who actually have shown the history that they're a good quality writer. None of these people on the show are good quality writers, so I can't even give them the benefit of the doubt that they're smart enough to be like, oh, we've been slamming men for 8 episodes, but on this last one, we're going to turn it around and it's going to all be about Doctor Doom. You guys are going to be so excited, and all you guys that complain about it are going to get so mad. It's like, I can't give them the benefit of the doubt at this point. Now, if that's the case, and I'm completely wrong on this one, and this is modeled on Doctor Doom, I'll be the first one to say, hey, you know what? We got that one wrong. We muffed this one up, and they actually shocked us. But I just don't see that happening.
I will apologize through the main Bounding account. I will post a video saying, yeah, I was wrong. But like, I think that's the main crux of it, Orange, is like, that's why I keep thinking you're a little too hung up on the Doomcock thing, because agreed, I don't like him. But like, with everything we've seen over these past few years from all these it's not just this. It's like, how can we give them any like benefit of the doubt, like Society was saying? That's all it really is.
All right. And like I said, there was no malice. Oh,
I understand there was no malice. It's just that is a thing with me, is that you don't come for the integrity of the site and my team, or I come for you, and that's just it.
And that's
that's fine, man. Hey, I completely respect you for
exactly. I'm not mad or anything. I just we resolved it.
That's where I would kind of lean more into the idea that these types of shows, it appears, have done nothing but try to antagonize the people who would apparently dislike the shows. The men, and this has been going on for quite a while. The thing that I would know is when they decided to cast a woman to play the Doctor on Doctor Who. Why did they do it? Because they said it was time, that there was a need. It's time we had a female Doctor. What happened? The fans got mad. They were called sexist, and you were going to get. You had people saying, "Oh, now I'm going to watch the show because it's finally had a woman." What happened? Yeah, the first 3 episodes got higher ratings because of the novelty, but the same writers that were not doing a good job to begin with were still in charge, so the show started losing ratings, and now it's gotten worse and worse and worse, and people have left. So they have been doing this to a lot of properties and doing all sorts of unnecessary things. Changing the person's race, changing the person's gender, trying to introduce things that they don't care about. We'll see this in other projects. So it's plausible that they were trying to go after, I guess, this person who is big with insults. I don't know who this person is, this Doomcock person, so I've no dog in this hunt. But it's plausible that they did this. It was a deliberate effort to antagonize the fans. We see this, and I don't know what the last topic will be, but it wouldn't surprise me if it involves antagonizing fans again needlessly, because you're trying to draw audiences to watch the show, which apparently they're trying to. And if they're going to just use the show to mock people who disagree with them, of course you're only going to appeal to people who are going to agree with you. What's the point? The whole point of a show is to draw audiences in, not to antagonize them to where they'll never come back. That's just
it sounds exactly like what you guys were saying yesterday about Amsterdam, where it's just yell and preach and everything at your audience instead of doing anything else.
Well, I'll make this final note here because this is actually going to tie in directly to our next topic. Our final topic of the night here is that you're noticing that with a lot of these shows, we've gotten to the point where these writers know that these shows are going to get backlash because they're either attacking their audience in the show or they know that they're going to promote something that's going to be divisive. So now what they're doing is that they're not even just like front loading the marketing by calling people racist, sexist, homophobic for not accepting it. They're literally writing in the show. It's like, let's take shots at the people who are going to complain about the show that we're writing in the middle of the show. So let's take 3 episodes out of our 9 season episode run to be complaining about the fans who are not going to like this in the first place. And then you wonder why these shows are just doing absolute dog shit. You wonder why no one's going to movies right now, why the box office is in its worst point since 9/11. You wonder why that no one's watching these shows on cable and on streaming, because the people who are in charge, who are in the writing room, who is in the directing, whatever the case may be, they're all garbage. And one studio seems to be fighting back against this, and because of that, they're being labeled white supremacists. So here's our closer here. This is Warner Brothers is announcing that they're shutting down pipeline programs for underprivileged writers or directors. I don't remember the exact terminology that was used here. I think it's somewhere in the story. But Warner Brothers Discovery is shutting down a long-running writers and directors television workshop at the end of the current 2022-2023 season. So this will probably be taking effect in next spring. But they're getting rid of this workshop that people are regarding as an important pipeline of opportunity for writers and directors of underrepresented groups to get into Warner Brothers television shows and movies and things of that nature. So essentially, Warner Brothers Discovery is axing their diversity, inclusion, and equity group. And they're cutting positions, and they're like, look, we've seen what you guys produce on these television shows. We see what you guys produce in these movies. We're not doing this anymore. We need to make money because we're not like Disney or Comcast that has several other revenue streams we can get billions of dollars from. We're basically just a studio and an entertainment company right now. So they're making cuts all around the board, and the diversity and inclusion.
I don't mean to interrupt right now because I know how it works on this show, but what do they have? Like, what are their streams right now after all of these like sell-offs? Is it just entertainment?
Well, now that they're not part of AT&T, now that they're not part of AT&T anymore, they're basically just a giant like media corporation. It's the assets that were sold off from Warner Brothers, which is the studio, the film studio, like DC Comics, things of that nature, and then you combine that with all the assets that they would have with Discovery, which was like HGTV, Discovery, and things of that nature. So they're essentially just one big like movie television studio at the moment. They don't have any underlying assets. Like Disney can rely on like Disneyland. Comcast can rely on its cable outreach and things of that nature. Like Warner Brothers doesn't have that luxury. Like they're like the one few studios in Hollywood right now that doesn't have. Well, we're making billions of dollars off this other property, so who cares if the movies are not making any money? It's like they're in a position now they very much care whether they're making money or not. I heard the last number I heard was there was something like $50 billion in debt because of the stuff that they're producing right now. So it's like they're trying to cut as much fat as they possibly can, and that might not even be enough. Like you saw that they completely sold off their share of the CW not too long ago. So they're down pretty bad, as some people would say. But obviously people took exception to the fact that they're cutting off the diversity quotas, or essentially what this program is to allow, hey, let's get more POC, let's get more LGBTQ, let's get more women in here. So people have had brutal hot takes on this issue. Here's one Twitter user. I'm just going to read what he wrote. Let's be perfectly clear. It's becoming increasingly difficult not to make the objective assessment that Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav is a white supremacist.
You have to point out who this is. This is the co-founder of freaking Fantastic Fest, the big movie festival that that happens every year.
Yeah,
it just happened last week. Like, this guy's insane.
Oh yeah, was it South by Southwest? He, him in the bayou, all that good stuff. Yeah, that's all present here. It says that once again we're bringing up Batgirl. They're still upset that the Batgirl movie, that, keep in mind, tested terribly to the point where David Zaslav himself had to come out and say, we cannot release this movie or it's going to damage our brand. That's how bad this movie was viewed internally with Warner Brothers. But because the lead of the movie is a Latin X, is the way they would pronounce it, they have to have the whole moral fight about keeping this film alive. And he's a white supremacist because he doesn't like this movie and blah blah blah. That wasn't the only one going on right now. Here's another one. In months, David Zaslav has destroyed tons of progress in Hollywood. Gutted animation, volted. First of all, gutted animation. Have you guys seen the crap that they produce at Cartoon Network these days? That shit needs to be gutted. It's just a side rant on there. Volted protects for tax write-offs.
I don't understand how that Velma show made it through. Like, I don't know how that thing survived. But
we're gonna get to that in a second too. That comes back. Pushed massive layoffs and placed his buds in Warner Brothers executive spots, is doing everything he can to assure that black people and people of color, like what? He wrote black and POC people, but POC is people of color. So essentially he's saying people of color people have a little input as possible.
Wow.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
It's like DC Comics.
Word salad.
Exactly.
No, super word salad. It's things he heard before, and now he's just regurgitating it.
And then here's another one. Like I said, there's tons of ones like this as well. It says, remember when they shut down Batgirl and all, like they probably would have done this if the directors weren't Arab Americans, and a few dudes in the business advised me quietly and loudly that not everything is about race. I totally agree. If you say that, you're a bigot. So, like I said, this whole thing started because Warner Brothers announced that on top of the many layoffs that are still coming this week, the layoffs are not done. That they're getting rid of the quote unquote major path for unrepresented voices in television. So, I want to start this off with Rob and then Rick, because this comes back to something we talked about last night. We talked about this, how there's really no movies that are inspiring anyone to go to the movie theaters right now. There just isn't. The last 4 weeks have all been terrible. We've gone from what? Don't Worry, Darling, The Woman King, Bros, and in Amsterdam. All of these woke, left-leaning agenda movies that nobody wants to go see. And if you look at the people who are in charge of these projects, it's probably people who benefited from programs just like this. And I said this before, it's like we need to get back to the point where we're having good writing or good directing, or people are just going to stop going to the movies. They're not going to buy movie tickets. They're not going to pay for streaming services. They're just going to give up altogether. And when it comes to the American box office, you don't really have that much going for it as it is. It only counts for a third of the world's box office at this point. So what are we going to do here? Are we just going to keep putting out trash because, well, people will protect the class of the producing the trash, so that way it has to come out? Or are we finally going to get to the point where, like, hey, look, we tried with this woke shit. We can't keep losing $50 billion a year, so we just got to start cutting this shit. Is Warner Brothers going to be the first studio to be like, we're done here. We can't keep doing this? I'll start with Rob.
Well, look, I actually like HBO Max the best out of all the streaming services. I think they're an excellent service for old movies.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
They have a great collection of older animation, which I grew up with, and just their classic Looney Tunes stuff. I don't care about the stuff they've cut. And this stuff where they're cutting representational, basically woke, people of color representational like movies and TV shows. It's like, okay, they're not good. If they were making Warner Brothers money, they would make more of them. They would double down on it. Instead, they axed it. They cut it. They completely cut it off because it's a killer for their business. And so I hope Warner Brothers succeeds, if only for that reason, to say we want to get back to actual movie making, entertaining people, putting people's butts in seats and having them enjoy what they're watching. And I feel like, you could take a cue from Top Gun Maverick, which I didn't even like that very much, but I can recognize something successful, and they should try to replicate that. They should try to replicate things people want to see instead of lecturing people. I spent the last month in movie theaters being lectured to. Even this past week, Amsterdam, I was excited to see it, and it was like, this is the worst. This is potentially the worst movie I've seen. And we're talking about Bros. We're talking about Don't Worry, Darling. I mean, some real terrible shit. The
biggest backlash, Rob, was I watched your guys' stream last night, and then I logged on to Twitter and I saw like a tweet from you that was like from a couple days ago where it's like, here's your next like big box office hit. I know I'm gonna go see it. And I was like, oh man, how things change in 24 hours.
So you can understand how disappointed I was because I wanted to see it. I was looking forward to it, and it was a pile of shit. So Hollywood in general, I think, is in trouble. I'm rooting for Warner Brothers, but they had a terrible 2022. Black Adam and Don't Worry Darling, that's their false slate. They're going to have no Oscar contenders, not that that matters anymore, but they're not even being talked about at the end of the year.
Rick, before I let you go, let me ask you this question: are you aware of Joaquin Castro in the state of Texas? That's your state.
Yes, I am. He and his
Julian?
twin brother. Yes, he is his twin brother. I think Julian is interesting. Julian Julian, I should say Julian Castro. He's the one that essentially torpedoed Beto for president, even though he didn't go in. Julian didn't go anywhere either. And yes, I'm familiar. I think they represent the San Antonio area or somewhere abouts.
Well, it's funny you mention that. It's funny you mention that because he commented on this story. And here's his comment. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit. I didn't realize I was so far back before Josh realized that. He said, so far, Warner Brothers Discovery has been outright hostile to content creators of color, and new voices trying to break into the industry. The new Warner Brothers Discovery seems to go out of its way to make the company less inclusive while getting rich off of their communities they're sidelining. We just said they're $50 billion in debt, so that's clearly a lie. And he says, and for what? The business model isn't working. Warner Brothers stock has lost more than 50% post-merger. So the stockholders suffer too. After the Batgirl fiasco, which was projected at $90 million tax break, yeah, because they didn't want to fucking lose any more money they pumped into it. Content creators have discussed making Warner Brothers Discovery their last look when pitching the studio. So, oh no, woke creators are not going to pitch their stuff to Warner Brothers moving forward. What a disaster. And then he also said that they've also failed to deliver on their promises made to civil rights organizations prior to the merger about their commitments to inclusion. So this is going to be the narrative that you're going to hear about Warner Brothers moving forward. Like, this is going to be like the thing like, oh no, they're trying to bring back Hollywood back to straight white males where, things actually made money and stuff like that. So go ahead, Rick. Defend your boy there.
No. Because I don't live in his district. I live far off. I'm reminded, and I'm going to get personal here, because I'm reminded of when I went to UTEP, and one of my writing professors was Benjamin Alita Sainz. He's going to have his young adult novel, Dante and Aristotle Discover the Secrets of the Universe. It's been adapted. It's going to be released either this year or next year. When I took his course, he was very dismissive of my writing because he said, and I quote, it's not Chicano enough. Apparently, yes, that was his reasoning. I basically was writing like an old white guy, which apparently I am.
You just got to throw the accents over all the E's, and then perfect. You're good to go.
Well, actually, technically, my last name should have an accent, but I never write it because I always forget the rules about the accents. I'm sorry, but he had a very narrow view of what I could write. Apparently, I'm supposed to just write about Chicano stuff, and I'm not exactly sure what that is because I really am the waspiest Mexican in the world.
Yeah, we established
that. Yeah, definitely. Apparently, I watch Hallmark movies all the time.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. But Joaquin seems to have that mindset that I basically have to stay in my barrio. That I cannot relate to reading or watching Agatha Christie adaptations, or that I can't enjoy the positives about Mark Twain or William Shakespeare that I love. Because I'm Chicano, so obviously I can only stay down with I guess Isabel Allende or someone else like that. When it comes to the diversity, look, I think we all want the diversity, but there's this idea of diversity is, I think, a little misguided in that it seems to suggest that you can only a black director can only direct about black stories. A Hispanic director can only write about Hispanic stories. You've had great adaptations. For example, I think Kerry Fukigama. He directed. He's Asian or part Asian, and he directed a brilliant version of Jane Eyre. It's probably my favorite version of Jane Eyre. You wouldn't
and
think
season one of True Detective.
I'm sorry.
And season 1 of True Detective, which is one of the greatest seasons of television of all time, I think. Anyway,
yes, and that and as far as I know, neither of them had to do anything with his race or his ethnic background. What I'm just curious, for all of these producers that went through the or all of these writers and directors that went through this diversity program, what exactly has been the content that they have produced that we know of now? I don't. If I were a writer or director, I don't want to be pigeonholed into just writing or directing specific stories. That's one of the reasons that I was so upset and displeased with Benjamin Alita Sainz. I don't see myself as, quote, a Chicano writer, because I'm not. I'm kind of removed from that. I don't. I mean, I'm Hispanic. I'm Mexican American, proudly so, but I don't consider myself to be pigeonholed just for that, except for the fact that yes, like all Mexicans, I do love Morrissey. But other than that, I don't see how I'm limited to what I write or what I enjoy reading based on my background. As for all of these people, all of these diversities, you think about it. Woman King was directed by a black woman. Don't Worry, Darling was directed by a woman. Rose was co-written by an openly gay man. That the fact that they are a black woman or a woman or a gay man does not mean that you're going to have a great film. You're just going to have a film that maybe reflects what they would want to see, but isn't what the audience want to see. I mentioned this last time when it came to Top Gun Maverick. You had diversity there, I mean the cast, but it wasn't it wasn't remarked on. And I think
it wasn't the primary focus of the story.
Exactly. You had a woman character, you had a black character, you had a Hispanic character, you had Bob, you had all of these people, and they were people. They were, I mean, every ethnicity and race and gender enjoyed Top Gun because they found something in there to like, regardless of who or what your background was. With Bros, again, what we said before, it's a niche film. It's not probably not even going to appeal to a lot of gay men, because the gay men I know are not that promiscuous. I mean, nowhere near that promiscuous. It's insane. So I'm just perplexed. Diversity is good, but if it's going to be used to just say, okay, as a Hispanic, you can only do Hispanic themes, that's an absurdity to me. And just kind of to really wrap it up, if you are a creator, if you're an African American creator or a Hispanic creator, you will find a way to create. There's so many ways to create now. With streaming, you've got all sorts of technology that can get you to create your film. You're not pigeonholed to the major studios. So that's my few cents on it, and I'll just leave it to other people to discuss this.
I want to give a little credit to Nerdigans here because she's been digging up a lot of these tweets here. Here's another one. Stephen DeKnight, I guess his name is the executive producer of Spartacus, Daredevil, Pacific Rim Rising. He says, this is what happens when you have bean counters take over. Meanwhile, people who are at the very top are tooling around that $100 million yachts. This merger should never happen. First of all, you're going to sit there and try to... Exactly. You're just going to sit there and try to make the argument that, oh, the rich people in Hollywood run their yachts. Yeah, in every studio, it's like that. So what are you talking about here? And then here's another one. This is a writer for The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, by the way. This is not great. So often people in Hollywood get accused of having progressive agendas and ignoring what would be best for business and service to them. And here we are watching an actual agenda unfold. And it's definitely not progressive. Some would say good.
Good. But this is from the writer of the Rings of Power, though. Like, it's just ironic as hell that she is saying this. I'm just
hot meat kettle.
Yeah, exactly. They had an agenda, and now they're seeing their agenda slowly starting to unravel, and now they're melting down. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Pete, do you have any thoughts on this whole thing? People trying to label Warner Brothers to be this right-wing production now.
Yeah, sorry about all the room noise. I have some family members staying over, and You know how that can be.
Yeah.
You know, this is kind of why I leaned almost more towards what Bounty and Comics was saying about Doomcock, just to bring that in a little bit. It's just like people are like, well, they have all this comic history, they have all these experts they could rely upon, but it's like, do you really believe they would utilize them? What we've seen so often, especially in TV writing, not I mean Hollywood in general, but especially TV writing, is laziness, just sheer laziness. And so it doesn't. When you look at things like they do, you're like, did they really look into the history of Doctor Doom and have to turn out a comic or email someone at Disney, or did they just type in nerd or whatever in YouTube and just go with whatever they find? Which seems more plausible to you? And there seems to be something really broken in Hollywood. On one hand, I can kind of understand Zavlav doing this because he's like, we pay all this money, and what are we getting for it? On the other hand, I feel a little sad, you know, like they erase shows for the tax breaks, or you know, the people are, you know, everyone is so stupid. These workshops that the WB took out today, in their more recent iterations, had been more equity diverse driven, like so much, but that wasn't why they're created. For the majority of their history, they weren't. The TV and directors workshop at Warner Brothers was a very prestigious thing. They only let 8 people in a year, and you are pitching stories for major productions. You're doing your own show, but you're also pitching ideas for like major shows on TV right now. It was when I looked earlier, but you can look up on the list of shows that are all connected to these two opportunities for advancement at Warner Brothers, and now that's gone now. Part of me, though, you know, goes back to David Zavlav. Is like, is something broken in Hollywood? Is something in the machine where we pitch stories, we develop them, we turn them into something that people like? What went wrong here that isn't working? I think something did go wrong. If you look at Japan and what's coming out, there's so much attention to it. Anime, manga, it's not necessarily that the Japanese are doing anything new or special. It's just they haven't become like the rest of us yet. They're still producing content based on merit. Whereas in the West, us in the West, we've kind of allowed other things to get in the way. We have special algorithms of these companies. We say you can only bring this kind of you can only have a certain kind of idea. It checks these boxes. Christian Toto, the critic, he wrote a book. I think it actually was this year, where he goes into this talking to people anonymously who talk about, I had this great idea. I got really far. Everyone said they loved it. I get to the pitch room and it gets shot down in flames. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get people. Yeah. And that's how you get like what we're having at Rings of Power, the most expensive show in the history of television. And the 2 people running it are morons. How did that happen? Why is everything so broken in Hollywood? Those 2 guys we now know didn't get there on talent. They got there because they had connections with J.J. Abrams. But I feel like part of me like hates what's happening, but I also like I can totally understand it because from the executive's point of view, it's like, why bother?
He's another one, by the way. J.J. Abrams. He's another guy who's made nothing but crap, and for some reason, he's successful. So I just want to say that real quick.
A lot of
and even he's getting shut out of this whole thing too, because he had like some big deal before the merger with Warner Brothers, and now they're just like fading out all of his projects as well, which may be a good thing. Let's just put it that way. Or
I'm sorry, just real quick. Remember, we do have now a diversity requirement for Best Picture consideration. Is that going to guarantee? Is that going to guarantee that the films are going to be better if you have a certain percentage of minorities or sexual minorities or even stories based on that? I mean, does that mean that Bros could qualify for Best Picture at this point?
Automatically does because of what it did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's already they're already like they've got the statue pre-printed with like Bros on it, like before it even released.
Original screenplay.
Orange, let me ask you this question because it goes back to what we were saying earlier with a lot of like these corporations. I can't remember exactly who was talking about this. I think it was in the last week or so. They're having this conversation about how it seems like how Hollywood becomes more corporate. You get more of these movies that are more agenda driven than they are like actually quality driven. Because like I said, let's use Rings of Power for example. This is an Amazon movie, right? And then they big talk about they spend $1 billion on it. Why didn't they they put the right people on there. Because what is $1 billion to Amazon at this point? It's nothing. Like there's no guarantee. There's no I guess you could say downfall of there being any success to it. They've already confirmed they're going to do at least 5 seasons of this, whether it's good or not. And the media is just going to keep telling you that this show is amazing. That people who don't like it are just racist bigots, and then they're just going to keep going on and on and on. And what we're seeing here, like I said, we have a company here that doesn't have the same windfall that everybody else does. So it's like, no, we actually have to get back to what Hollywood used to be, which is making content that the people will actually go see like in theaters. And now these people who have benefited from this lazy ass system in Hollywood over the last few years are complaining about it. So what is just your thoughts on the whole Warner Brothers fiasco and the whole idea of diversity and inclusion in Hollywood to begin with?
First off, I have no problem with organic diversity where they have the people in there that they're not constantly mentioning race. Like I said, I believe it was last week, people can remember beyond 5 seconds of what they see and hear. And when you are constantly beating them over the head, it no longer becomes fun to watch. I have said this many times. People go to the theaters to escape the realities and the stresses of real life. And now they're going to the theaters and realizing this is no longer fun. This is no longer enjoyable. I'm having this shit thrown in my face. I'm being told I'm an asshole because I'm white, and because I'm straight, I am now some sort of evil person. Not to mention the fact that David Zaslav, he's picking up on what is going wrong. He's looking at the forced diversity and he's drawing the correlation of all these failed projects. Look at why is this failing? Why is this failing? Why is this failing? Why is this failing? All of them have identity politics in it. He is actually smart enough to draw that conclusion. That is why I believe he is doing all of this. And people don't like that because they're saying, oh, they're going to get rid of diversity. No. They're not getting rid of diversity. Diversity has been around long before any of us has ever been born. They've been doing, or freaking William Shakespeare had diversity in his plays. Not to mention the LGBTQ, as I've said many times, I believe, even in this podcast, LGBTQ has been represented for over 100 years on film. 1916 was the very first movie that had a character or a woman who was in love with another woman. And yet everybody's saying, oh, we're underrepresented and whatnot. It's like you've had hundreds, maybe even almost 1,000 movies by now with gay characters in them, lesbian characters in them. And, well, back then, they weren't a problem. Nobody had a problem with movies back then that had these things. But now you must ask yourselves, why are they having a problem with them now? Because constantly we have to have this shit beat over our head with all the crap that they've been putting in entertainment. Except David Zaslav is looking at this and saying, this isn't making us money. Our company, our business, first and foremost, he has it right to make money. With all this crap that is causing us to lose money, we're hemorrhaging money. So it's time to cut the fat, as you have said. It's time to actually go back to what worked. Now, he's going to be labeled white supremacist, evil, fascist, and whatnot. Hopefully, he has the thick skin to deal with it, and hopefully, he can make his pitch to the board members or whoever else is in charge and say, look, we have to go back to what is working. We can't keep pushing this crap and using identity politics as the narrative. The narrative has been rejected. It's been rejected. And yes, as Doomcock has said, without respect, we reject. And people are no longer being respected in theaters. Or Hollywood thinks that they're better than us, and now they're actually coming out and saying it out loud. You need to believe as we believe, otherwise you're a fascist, you're a bigot, you're this or that. And I'm sorry, but who the hell freaking made you all the bosses of us? Nobody gave you that freaking gave you that title. And also, something that a lot of Hollywood should realize, we're the ones who are putting your money in your pocket. We're the ones who is putting your bread on your damn table. If we really want things to go back to the way it was, we need to actually talk with our wallets. We need to actually completely reject this stuff. If it means that movies and the box office completely tank, so be it. Now, I've also said, with all of this stuff and the streaming services, say goodbye to your bigger budget movies. And we are now actually seeing that as well. What did we just have 4 weeks or more of? Some really crap and obscure movies that nobody cared about. Yeah. And now they're saying, and we're having everybody saying, well, you're a bigot, you didn't see our movie. You didn't do the right job. You didn't entice us to go see your movie. And maybe you need to actually take a lesson about that. Kind of like what Rings of Power did, which I reported on my channel earlier. Yes, it's 5 or 6 days old, but they admitted to censoring reviews, to actually blocking and outright deleting negative reviews. I'm sorry, but in a world of entertainment, you need the feedback. You want to know what is working, what is not. By having those negative reviews and the number of those negative reviews, you now know that, okay, maybe we need to step away from this and go back to this. Now, if this somehow clashes with your narrative that you're trying to push, maybe you need to actually say, should we have pushed the narrative? Now, also, one of the funny things about this is a lot of people were calling out the Rings of Power before the show debuted about the identity politics. Tolkien purists and whatnot were coming out and just acknowledging the fact that there weren't black elves or black dwarves and this and that. Well, then the show came out. What was the one thing that was barely even mentioned when the reviews were coming out? The race of the dwarves and the race of the elf. They were barely talking about that. They simply went to their more objective standard and said, the show is boring as fuck. The acting in many of the scenes is terrible. The writing is atrocious. And honestly, I've seen better writing from a third grader. I have a cousin, back when he was third grade, wrote a damn good essay. This kid was basically like writing 6th grade quality. And if a third grader can do a better job than a Rings of Power episode, what does that tell you about the people in charge at Amazon? It's like, dude, Bezos, you may not give a care if people see your junk, but you better give a care about whether people watch your streaming service. Because as you said, we're going to have to label this a success. Otherwise, we're going to have to get rid of the streaming service. Well, here's the thing, dude. You may have spent $1 billion on Rings of Power. Nobody likes it. Well, except for the people who are paid to shill for you. What about those other shows and those other movies that you have done? Samaritan, that Chris Pratt one, what's it called?
Tomorrow War, that one?
That movie, yeah. But he's doing a series for Amazon.
Terminalist.
Yeah. People are watching those. People are watching, The Boys, even though The Boys is going to woke as shit too. But people are watching those, actually getting entertained by it. That shit, they're bringing it, that's raking in money. Where your Rings of Power, $1 billion production, you're freaking digitally replicating people to build your crowd. It's like, dude, seriously, you spent $1 billion and you couldn't afford more people? Also, they automatically slated the second season. They said the second season has to be successful if we are going to push beyond. We have 5 seasons planned, but 2 seasons were automatically approved because they need to tell more of the story. The only problem is, as I have said on many streams and other videos, many of my videos when it comes to the Rings of Power, you got your smaller franchises like Terminator, Star Wars, Star Trek, and yada yada, which have their millions of fans. You have Tolkien, who has over 1 billion fans. That's a whole nother animal. When you piss off an animal like Tolkien fans over 1 billion strong, many of them are not online, and many of them have outright rejected the show. you're going to lose money. You're going to have problems. Now with Warner Brothers, back to that, because that's what you originally asked me about. He or Zaslav is actually the smartest one out of all of the freaking entertainment aspects, or out of all the bigger studios. Yes, Warner Brothers doesn't have the fallbacks and whatnot as the other studios do. And he's actually being smart about it. He's like, we need to start making money. We need to go back to what works. If people have a problem with that, they're just going to have to deal. We have pandered to the smaller amount of people, the minority in number, long enough. We are going to have to start, quote unquote, pandering to the bigger crowds, the people who are saying, you kind of just literally said, fuck all the bigger amount of people and did your own shit. They're cutting comics. They're trimming the fat. It's time to actually go back to what worked, go back to what is entertaining, and stop pushing these narratives, because the narratives are no longer working. As my friend Raging Rhino has said, the narrative's fucked.
Well, if I could just jump in real quick.
Go ahead.
Orange Hat made me think of about a few things. First, when it comes to the issue of diversity, just having minorities, you look back to I was reminded of one of the great cinematographers of what is called the Golden Age, and his name was James Wong Howe. I'm sure he faced much more discrimination because of his Asian ancestry. And what did he do? He's revered among cinematographers, and I believe he won maybe 1 or 2 Academy Awards for his work long before we had the calls for diversity. When it comes to diversity in stories and characters, you've had the Woman King, which has basically altered history to fit a narrative. You look at something like Hidden Figures. That was a very popular film, and it was about African American women. And that was one of my favorite films, and my mom loved it, even though she knew nothing about it. The same with Harriet. Of course, my mom's not going to know about African American history, having been born and raised in Mexico. She's not going to know much about it. In terms of the Rings of Power, just approving 5 seasons sight unseen, sure, they could spend the money, but it made me think of an unfortunate disaster that most of you probably have never heard of, called Life with Lucy, where they CBS or ABC, I think ABC, approved a whole season's worth without even a pilot episode. They just said, oh, well, this is going to be a big hit because Lucille Ball is in it. What do they have? A terrible show that was kind of ruined her reputation because, again, they decided just to go by name recognition. And if you have that with Rings of Power, you're going to have a poor show just based on name recognition. Now, in fairness, I've not seen Rings of Power, and I'm not as well tied to the Tolkien mythos, but I don't really think that having James Wong Howe, yes, I don't believe having having a Hispanic elf is going to make me rush out to see this show. I just would not watch it. Period. And I had no problem with the first 3 films, which I think were well done. The less said about the Hobbit trilogy, the better. But yeah, so those are just my 2 cents on those issues.
Yeah, anyone who has any final thoughts on this topic, go ahead and say it now.
Well, it's all about racial diversity. It's never diversity of thought. I always love that. And it's important to have people of different backgrounds, but their race is almost, it's an infinitesimal part of the picture. There's so many other things that play a role in someone's life, their background, who they are, how they treat people, their relationships, all of that. So I'm sorry, CS.
Yeah, it's the Martin Luther King doctrine. People need to return to something that he always believed in, and something that he needed, or that the world really needed, to stop looking at skin color, to stop focusing on skin color, to judge not by the color of one's skin, but by the content of their character. Now, yes, I've actually had quite a few debates where they're like, well, he was talking about his kids. No, he was referring to his kids in that moment, but he was alluding to something even further and greater. By them constantly pushing racial narratives you're actually regressing in this society. You're not progressing. They claim to call it progressive, but there's no real progress. You've actually divided us further because now, whites are have all had their time. Who talks like that? An actual racist. And a person who's saying, well, there needs to be less whiteness. All this divisive talk is what's pushing people away from theaters.
Well, the funny part for me is going to be the narrative of the next few weeks and few months that David Zaslav is a white supremacist and someone's going to call him a Nazi. And emphasis on the last name Zaslav, calling that guy a Nazi is going to be just absolutely hilarious for
Isn't
me.
he Polish?
They've been calling him a Nazi, though. I actually did a story about it a while ago. They called him a Nazi when they went after the cartoons,
the animation stuff. Yeah,
they called him a Nazi and they called him a Trump supporter, and it's all based on a fake tweet.
Like I said, people need to just stop giving these people power, like whatsoever, because we've gotten to the point where we're just straight up calling Jewish people Nazis now, with no context of what that word actually means anymore. So I don't know why people are so afraid of it. It means nothing. They've overused it to this point. But look, something's going to have to change here as far as Hollywood goes, because the last 4 weeks, as myself, Rob, and Rick have all experienced, we sat through The Woman King, which was a lecture on colonialism, even though that was about like literally whitewashing history and African slave trade and all that nonsense. Then the very next week, we got to watch Don't Worry Darling, which is a lecture on the patriarchy and male supremacy. Then we got to sit through Bros, which was a lecture on how you guys haven't given us a gay rom-com in 100 years, so here's a bunch of degeneracy. And then last week, Amsterdam, hey, why don't we lecture you guys about fascism next? And then you wonder why people just go stay at home and be like, you know what, inflation's already killing me as it is, I just won't go to the movie theater. I just won't. I'll just stay at home. And then you wonder why you're losing people. But because it's not their money, it's the corporation's money. They don't care that people are not going to watch their movies. They need to keep their agenda alive at all costs. And it's like, it's going to get to a point where that can no longer be the case. Either Hollywood's going to have to change internally because they're not making as much money as they should be making anymore, or the whole thing's just going to collapse. That's your only two options at this point. So yeah, no, not Zaslav with a Z. So
no, he was basically that was a
NAZI.
That was
I got it late.
Natslov.
Yeah,
Natslov.
Yeah, this is why we don't pay Josh to make jokes.
As I've asked before, what is the target audience for all of these diverse shows? Are you
Twitter.
Trying to?
Damn it! You beat me to it.
You know what? I'm
starting to think that, film. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm starting to think that it might be based on what I've been seeing in my Discord groups as of late. They've been like posting all these weird TikToks. I'm like, damn, I think that TikTok may be the new Tumblr at this point. My God, TikTok is like the true cancer of the internet.
Mm-hmm. Well, TikTok is leukemia, where Twitter is brain cancer.
No, that was Tumblr is brain cancer.
Cassie was just banned on TikTok, and what I told her was that you shouldn't have been on there in the first place. So yeah.
Oh, I've told her it's like
we all told you that.
I'll never use TikTok. That shit's owned by China, and I mean, it's
what
like
more do you need?
Honestly, that's like the third worst thing about TikTok that's owned by the Chinese government. My number one worst thing is that it's only used by the absolute dregs of society. And
I was going to say that there's teenagers there, and teenagers are just the worst. And like, I don't want anything to do with teenagers.
I said dregs, so I include them in that.
That works. That works.
TikTok is the Chinese government's greatest weapon against the United States.
Yeah,
I'll simply leave it there.
100%. No,
I mean, if you really want me to elaborate on it, I will. But
I think it's the debt. Realistically, but yeah, I totally understand what you're. I got
for pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceuticals are also bad.
Yes, I'll give it that. But it's one of all right. Let me rephrase. It's one of the greatest weapons against the United States.
Coronavirus is pretty bad too. So I mean, there's been a lot of
that was used against the entire world. So
there's a long
TikTok is used against the Western civilization. Period.
Really, the only thing we can use against them is Shenyang. So I'm worried.
Oh, hell yeah. 1,000 years of culture, though, Rick. 1,000 years of culture.
That's weird. I actually went to a show. That's
I know.
weird.
It is really weird.
Well, I tell you this, we've come to the end of our show here. We've had a lot of fiery.
We triggered Cass. She's gone all caps.
Oh yeah, she's fighting the coup as we speak to fight the government. So, but we've reached the end of our show. We had a great discussion tonight, a lot of passionate talk here. So I want to give everyone a chance to promote everything they have coming up. And this week, I'm starting with Rick because last week you said some things that caused everyone to have a meltdown about your viewing habits, especially regarding the Halloween series. So I'm going to let everyone know what you have coming up. So let's get this out of the way.
Well, as a matter of fact, I have just bought my Halloween Ends ticket. I still have not seen any, so this will be my first. Sorry. What I've got coming up is I'm going to work on to review the live action Pinocchio and still try to work on the comparisons between the TV miniseries and the Netflix Blonde, the Ingrid Bergman and animated Anastasia. So I'll be doing some comparisons. And yeah, it's a sad. The Dodgers are up 5-0, bottom of the fourth. I'm depressed.
Oh, dude, it's the worst.
Fuck the Dodgers.
We gave it up in the first. It was done then.
Yeah. So that's pretty much my thing. I'm just kind of waiting for Halloween Ends, and then maybe work my way back. Maybe work my way back into everyone's good graces, and I hope the spirit of forgiveness just comes to me.
Oh, I've forgiven you. I was the one that endorsed you last week.
Yeah, so that blew up in your face.
Orange Hat has to go on like a big media campaign.
Pretty much,
I don't know this man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Halloween was playing.
Well, he's going to do an apology
today,
tour.
Yeah,
and that's the only brothers.
That's the only decent film we're going to get these days.
Shutter.
All right, let's hop over the Orange Hat. I know you got some stuff coming up. You had a mystery review today, so tell us what you did today and what you got coming up.
Well, I did. My mystery review today was the original Annabelle. The next one is next week, which is the hints are a priest possessed and lock me up, which is a quote from the movie. Don't spoil it if you know it. Tomorrow, I'm doing a guest choice review with Ambassadorial Wing and Madam Ambassador. We're going to be discussing The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser one, the good one. And I'm then going to be going to the theaters on Saturday to check out Halloween Ends so I could do a review for it and then join you guys for your review on that. And other than that, if anybody wants to do a guest choice review on my channel this week or this month, I'm focusing on horror movies if you want to do it. And you get to pick the time, the place, or the date, and the movie. So, yeah, if you want to do a stream where we just talk about a movie that we enjoy, hit me up on Twitter or hit me up on, Twitter.
All right, let's jump over to Spencer. I know you got a lot to work on right now, so tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, so first I want to say...
That's great. So let's move on to...
I knew it. Like, I paused. I paused at the beginning. I knew that was coming. But essentially, I just want to say thanks for having me on. To anybody watching, thanks for tuning in. It's always... I love Tuesday nights. I love normally being here in the chat. As for what I've got going on, just check us out every day on Bounding Into Comics, and I'll be with Jacob tomorrow on the Black Pill stream.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Josh isn't here with us. Definitely mute him right now, bailing on our damn podcast.
We probably should keep it that way.
Yeah. All right, let's jump over to our good buddy Pete, who's been a great panel guest to have on here the last couple of weeks. So I know you got a lot of work coming up here too. So go ahead and let people know where to find you.
I apologize, society. I kept your mute button finger working pretty hard this episode. There's so much going on in the background. Apologize about that.
I know. I usually say that for Rick.
Yeah, so I got some different projects working on, articles. The big thing I'm looking forward to is I got to go on Colin Moriarty's podcast, and that episode's coming up on Saturday, which is really cool. I really liked Colin, especially when he ran IGN and stuff. So that's the big
so
thing
cool.
I'm excited about.
Sacred Symbols?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, that's so cool.
excited.
I'm really jealous. I can't wait to see it or listen to it.
Yeah, no, me too. And I really like the chat. I like listening to all the different opinions and hearing from you guys. If I come off like a know-it-all, or if I'm like pew-pewing your ideas, I really don't mean to do that. By this time today, I'm just kind of conking out and getting a little tired. But I think this is excellent. I appreciate you letting me be on your chat.
Thanks, and hopefully we'll see you here next week. Now we'll switch over to the West Coast, buddy Rob. How you doing there, Mr. Disheveled? What do you got coming up? Hopefully YouTube? No, nothing.
Well, I just want to kind of piggyback over what Pete just said, and that I do mean to lean into being an asshole. So if I ever cross the line, just know it's part of my charm. I would definitely recommend, if you guys have not seen the Universal monster movies, the original 1930s, Dracula, The Mummy, Frankenstein, The Wolfman, Phantom of the Opera, The Invisible Man. They're all great. They're all classics. You should watch them if you get the chance. I think they're available on Peacock, but if you have access to them, really check them out. They're great, and they're the basis for so many great horror movies that came after. So I definitely want to recommend that. And I'm just going to be continuing watching horror movies. I saw that Cassie just recently watched Sleepaway Camp, which I thought there were some really great gross out kill scenes and whatever, but I couldn't stop noticing how badly the actors were kissing each other. And I always thought that was the funniest thing that stood out. Was some shit from the 80s is so bad, but it's considered a classic because it's so bad it's good. It's almost it's made in that way. But yeah, I got nothing coming up except for a couple of reviews that I'm really behind on, and just check me out. I'm always on Twitter.
All right then. And then if you love seeing this face, then guess what? There's going to be a lot more to see tomorrow night here on this channel. What would you tell her what we got coming up here, Norgans?
So, first of all, tomorrow we're going to be roasting the hell out of Digimon Frontier, which it does need to be roasted, especially after what they did to one of the best villains, or could have been one of the best villains, with Lucibon, my poor sweet baby. But anyways, something that I had done, I do have a Hunter x Hunter announcement written up for Bounding. Yes, Hunter x Hunter is finally coming back this month. I'm so excited for Hunter x Hunter. It's been almost 4 years since it went on hiatus. It's coming back on October 23rd. So there's that. I'm also working on a Gundam and My Hero Academia article for Bounding. I covered Bleach yesterday, the first episode of Bleach. And I almost decided to cover Chainsaw Man anime, but then manga decided to happen. And at least I covered the chapter of Chainsaw Man. There's a lot, of course, I'm hoping I get to cover this for Bounding, but Tokyo Revengers is hitting its climax soon, and we got a major reveal there. Four Knights of the Apocalypse, the Seven Deadly Sins return. We got the Seven Deadly Sins there now, and we got the war starting up in there between Arthur and Four Knights of the Apocalypse, which was epic as hell. And then of course we got the usual chapters coming out this week to boot, and then of course I'll be here next week. So stay tuned.
All right, then. And then our good buddy C.S. Johnson had to step out. I think she's taking a call right now, but she wanted to give us this little diggy right here to let us know that she does have something that she wants to promote as well. She has a Kickstarter here for the Starlight Chronicles, which is already hit its goal of $500. So if you guys want to go ahead and give money to this one, put it here in the chat. I'll put the link there in the chat for you guys to go. She does. Oh yeah, hardcover. Our good buddy Johnson does a ton of great books, a lot of good fiction. So go check out her stuff. She has a YouTube channel, csjohnson.com. You can also check her out on Twitter as well. She, like I said, she writes a lot of good books. So hey, if you're looking for something new to read, definitely check out her stuff. Very, very good quality stuff she's working on here, and very successful, as you can see here. So hopefully she keeps up the good work. And yeah, even Cassie's backed up her Kickstarter as well. Now let's go ahead and shift this over to me to let you guys know what I got coming up here. Back to me. Coming up here in the next couple of days. So yeah, tomorrow we're gonna be talking about Digimon. We're gonna wrap up our Digimon saga. Essentially, we're just gonna be trashing Digimon Frontier for the next hour and a half. It's gonna be pretty fun tomorrow night on the show. That's gonna be at 7 p.m. here on YouTube. And then immediately after that one, we're gonna be jumping on to Bounding in the Comics YouTube. We're gonna be talking about the big news stories of the day. I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about Warner Brothers a little bit more detail, because I feel like this whole story is gonna snowball even more later on this week. So catch us on Bounding in the Comics YouTube tomorrow night, and then, like I said, myself and Nerdigans Wednesday. Next Monday night, next week, myself, Orange Hat, Cassie, who I'm pretty sure will be well enough to join us for that show. We're going to be talking about Halloween Ends. We're going to be talking about the end of the Halloween franchise, and I'm pretty sure we're going to spend a lot of time just roasting Rick about the fact that he hasn't watched a single movie up until this one, even though there's been at least 15 up to this point that I know of. So
if Rick at any point during his reviews says, I was confused about this plot point, he's no longer allowed on these streams.
Okay. Fair enough.
Hey, just be thankful that I'm not going to bring up your generation's Gene Kelly or Ginger Rogers for that review.
Neither of them are in that movie. You got to find a new one.
I'm going to have to find, Your generation.
He'll dig up some other obscure reference.
Yeah. I'll find someone.
You could just say my generation's Jamie Lee Curtis, because hey, she's still alive.
Yeah, I think Monday is going to be. I think Monday is going to be fun, and we definitely need to have some fun because it's been a dreck here in the last month or so. And coming up here in a couple of weeks, I know me and Rick talked about this last night, and Rob as well. We might be doing a review of Dawn of the Dead here pretty soon as well, because there's not too many great movies coming up, especially towards the end of the month. I think that one would be a good one to touch up on at the end of the month. By the way, if you guys don't know, Geeks and Gamers is having a meetup in Orlando at the end of the month, and I may or may not be there. And by may or may not, I'm definitely going to be there. So just a little shout out for that. And then, of course, next week will be episode 20 of the Barroom Podcast. It'll be here Tuesday night. We'll be talking about the biggest stories in the world of entertainment once again. And yeah, if you guys like what you saw here tonight, go ahead and subscribe, do whatever you guys want to do to hopefully get more views on this channel and on this podcast. So for everyone here, from Orange to Spencer to Rick to Nerdigans to Johnson to Pete to Rob, we're not shouting out Cassie or Josh because they're not on the show, so they don't get shout outs this week. But for everyone else who joined us,
they're sick and diseased.
Yeah. But for everyone else who joined us this week, Neo, Duke Nukem, don't say get well there. It should be fine. And everyone else, thank you guys for joining us. We're gonna go ahead and hit the outro here. Hit a little bit of SpringYard and say goodnight, goodbye, and see you later. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more of the cat tomorrow night as well. So we'll keep that for you. But until then, good night, goodbye, adios.
Stay humble.
No, you know what? On second thought, I'm not gonna play the outro because I'm not gonna give this Ninja Turtle asshole the satisfaction of enjoying the SpringYard music this week. So I'm gonna turn around. We're gonna hit our regular intro music, and that's how we're gonna leave this week. So that's your punishment for this week, Josh. You're not even getting the outro this week. Good night, goodbye, see you later.
Take no for an answer. There's no telling where we've been, and all is that if you can't find me, you may never